Hello everyone, and welcome to the Ben 10 What Ifs. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Ben 10 made a custom ultimate Omnitrix. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Ben 10. The Ultimate Evolution. Chapter 1. Breaking Point. The Omnitrix sparked and fizzled. Its familiar green glow stuttering like a dying heartbeat. Benjamin Kirby Tennyson, savior of the universe multiple times over, wielder of the most powerful device in the galaxy, and currently bleeding from a gash above his left eye, slammed his palm against the malfunctioning dial with practiced desperation. "Not now," he growled, ducking as a chunk of concrete the size of a refrigerator sailed overhead. "Come on, reset already." Downtown Bellwood lay in ruins around him. The commercial district, once a gleaming testament to human-alien coexistence, had become an improvised battleground. Storefronts gaped like broken mouths, glass and merchandise scattered across fractured pavement. Fire hydrants geysered into the smoky air, creating rainbows that mocked the destruction beneath them. 20 feet away, a family huddled behind the overturned shell of a delivery truck, the parents shielding their children with their bodies. The youngest, a girl no more and 5, stared at Ben with absolute faith in her eyes. It was a look he'd seen countless times before, the unwavering belief that Ben 10 would save them all. The massive, crystalline entity that had been methodically dismantling the city block roared, its faceted body refracting sunlight into prismatic weapons. The creature, which Ben had mentally dubbed Prism, wasn't inherently evil. According to the panicked communications from Plumber headquarters, it was a peaceful deep space silicon-based lifeform that had been driven into a berserker state by exposure to experimental transdimensional radiation. That didn't make its devastation any less deadly. "Work, you piece of," Ben bit off the curse, mindful of the children nearby. At 23, he'd outgrown much of his teenage impetuousness, replacing it with a strategic mind that had earned grudging respect from even his most hardened critics. 7 years of constant battles, diplomatic missions, and intergalactic crises had forged he cocky teenager into something greater, a hero who understood that true strength came from restraint and wisdom, not just power. None of which helped if the Omnitrix refused to cooperate. Prism's crystalline arms extended, sharpening into translucent blades that shimmered with deadly purpose. It advanced on the trapped family, seemingly drawn to their movement. "Hey, over here, you oversized chandelier," Ben shouted, grabbing a twisted metal rod from the debris and hurling it with precision. It struck the creature's central mass with a resonant chime. "That's right. Focus on me." The distraction worked. Prism's attention shifted, its amorphous head rotating 180 degrees with a sound like grinding glass. Multiple prismatic eyes formed across its surface, focusing on Ben with cold alien intelligence. "I really hope I don't regret this," Ben muttered, abandoning cover to sprint across open ground. The Omnitrix continued its erratic flashing as he ran. After years of partnership with the device, Ben had developed an almost symbiotic understanding of its patterns and limitations. This wasn't a standard recharge cycle. Something deeper was wrong, like the fundamental programming was struggling against itself. A crystalline projectile whistled through the air, slicing through Ben's jacket sleeve and drawing a thin line of blood along his forearm. He hissed but didn't slow, leaden the creature away from the civilians toward the abandoned construction site at the edge of the district. There, at least, the collateral damage would be minimized. His earpiece crackled to life. "Ben, status report." The voice belonged to Rook Blanco, his longtime partner. The Ravanagonder's typical formal speech patterns had shortened over years of friendship, adapting to crisis situations with efficient precision. "Oh, you know," Ben panted as he vaulted over a collapsed street sign, "just playing tag with a crystal kaiju while the Omnitrix decides to take a coffee break. The usual Tuesday. We have identified the entity as a crystal sapine variant, designation unknown," Rook replied, ignoring Ben's sarcasm with practiced ease. "Its biomatrix is destabilizing due to exposure to transdimensional radiation." "Got the memo," Ben interrupted, skidding around a corner. "Any bright ideas on how to stop it without the watch?" The pause on the other end spoke volumes. "Fantastic," Ben muttered. He reached the construction site, a half-completed high-rise intended to house the new Interspecies Cultural Exchange Center. Bare girders reached skyward like skeletal fingers, high stacks of materials and equipment created a maze of potential weapons and cover. The ground trembled as Prism followed, its crystalline body scraping against the narrow alley walls, sending cascades of brick dust showering down. It emerged into the open space of the construction site, twice as tall as before, having absorbed building materials into its mass. Ben positioned himself behind a concrete mixer, mind racing. Without the Omnitrix, he was just a human, albeit one with extensive hand-to-hand combat training and an encyclopedic knowledge of alien weaknesses. But knowledge alone wouldn't dent this creature's hide. The Omnitrix gave a particularly violent spark, and Ben winced as electrical feedback stung his wrist. "Come on, partner," he whispered to the device. "We've been through worse than this." For a brief, hopeful moment, the familiar green glow stabilized, then faded to a dull, lifeless gray. Perfect timing, Ben sighed, as Prism's shadow fell over him. The next few minutes became a blur of desperate evasion. Ben rolled, jumped, and improvised with every trick Grandpa Max and the plumbers had ever taught him. He used a forklift to temporarily pin one of Prism's limbs. He triggered a cement pump to coat another in quick-drying concrete. He even managed to topple a stack of steel beams onto the creature, buying precious seconds. But a human, even an exceptional one, could only evade for so long. The blow, when it came, sent Ben flying across the site. He crashed into a support pillar with bone-jarring force, stars exploding behind his eyes. Warm wetness trickled down his side where a crystalline shard had embedded itself between his ribs. "Ben." Rook's voice seemed distant through the ringing in his ears. "Reinforcements are 3 minutes out. You must." 3 minutes is 2 minutes too many, Ben groaned, struggling to his feet. Prism advanced, its body now a chaotic jumble of construction materials and crystal, pulsing with unstable energy. It extended a limb toward Ben, the tip morphing into something that resembled an energy cannon. In that moment of certain doom, the Omnitrix suddenly blazed emerald green, brighter than Ben had ever seen it. The familiar beep of activation was instead a high-pitched whine that made his teeth ache. "Now or never," Ben gasped, slapping the dial without bothering to select an alien. The transformation seized him in a tsunami of green energy, but something was wrong. Instead of the clean, familiar sensation, this felt jagged and raw, as though the Omnitrix was struggling to maintain coherence. Ben's body stretched and compressed simultaneously, genetic code rewriting itself in contradictory patterns. When the light faded, Ben stood transformed, but not into any single alien he recognized. His body combined elements of Heatblast and Diamondhead, crystalline structures glowing from within with magmatic intensity. The hybrid form radiated power, but also instability. "What the?" His voice echoed strangely, resonating through crystal chambers in his chest. "This is new." Across the construction site, Prism hesitated, seemingly confused by the transformation. It tilted its amorphous head, energy cannon powering down momentarily. Ben had no time to analyze his new form. Acting on instinct, he thrust his hands forward. Instead of either Diamondhead's crystal projectiles or Heatblast's flames, a stream of molten crystal erupted from his palms, superheated shards that drilled into Prism's mass and expanded on contact. The effect was immediate and devastating. The molten crystal conducted heat throughout Prism's body while simultaneously creating structural weaknesses. The creature screeched, a sound like 1,000 wine glasses shattering at once, as fracture lines spread across its surface. "Sorry about this," Ben called out, genuinely regretful. "But you're not giving me much choice." With a final, concentrated blast, Ben targeted the destabilized core visible within Prism's fractured body. The creature froze mid-motion, its entire form glowing white-hot from within. Then, with surprising gentleness, it collapsed into a heap of inert, cloudy crystals. The immediate threat neutralized, Ben became aware of a building pressure within his hybrid form. The Omnitrix symbol on his chest pulsed erratically, sections of his crystalline body flaring dangerously. "That's probably not good," he managed, before a wave of energy exploded outward from his body. For a brief, terrifying moment, Ben felt himself coming apart at a molecular level, diamond fire atoms scattering into quantum uncertainty. Then reality reasserted itself with bruising finality, leaving him human once more, sprawled amidst cooling crystal fragments. The Omnitrix was silent, its surface displaying an unfamiliar diagnostic pattern. Ben. Rook's voice in his ear again. Our sensors detected an enormous energy surge. Are you? I'm alive, Ben confirmed, wincing as he probed his injured side. The crystalline shard had dissolved during his transformation, but the wound remained. Can't say the same for our crystal friend. And the Omnitrix. He trailed off, staring at the device. Something's different. Wrong. I need to get it to Blukik and Dryba. Medical and containment teams are arriving now, Rook reported. The civilians from the commercial district. Ben's heart sank. The family behind the truck. Did they? Rook's hesitation told him everything. The parents survived with minor injuries, his partner finally said, voice carefully neutral. The younger child is unharmed. The older boy is in critical condition. A fragment struck him during the final confrontation. The world seemed to tilt sideways. Ben closed his eyes, nausea washing through him that had nothing to do with his injuries. I was too slow, he whispered. The watch wouldn't work, and I was too slow. You cannot blame yourself for equipment malfunction, Rook said firmly. Without your intervention, casualties would have been significantly higher. But Ben barely heard him, staring at the device that had defined his life since he was 10 years old. For 13 years, the Omnitrix had been his identity, his responsibility. His burden and his gift. It had saved the universe multiple times. It had made him a hero. And today, it had failed when he needed it most. I'm coming in, he said flatly. But not to medical. I need a lab, and I need Blukik and Dryba. A new resolve hardened within him. This can't happen again. Not ever. Plumber headquarters had evolved dramatically from its early days beneath a simple plumbing store. Now it occupied a sprawling underground complex beneath Bellwood's governmental district, connected to satellite facilities around the globe. The Central Hub featured a seamless fusion of human and alien technology, reflecting the organization's expanded role in maintaining peace on an increasingly integrated Earth. Ben strode through the gleaming corridors, ignoring the concerned glances his battered appearance attracted. The cut above his eye had stopped bleeding but had crusted over unpleasantly, and his torn jacket revealed the bandaged wound on his side. Medical attention could wait. He had more pressing concerns. The laboratory level buzzed with activity, scientists of various species working on projects ranging from weapons development to xenobiology. Ben made his way to a particular lab at the far end, marked with multiple hazard warnings and a simple sign, Galvan Research Division, authorized personnel only. The door slid open at his approach, recognizing his biometric signature. Inside, the lab had been customized for its diminutive occupants, with platforms and walkways suspended at various heights. Miniature equipment hummed and beeped, and holographic displays projected enlarged data readouts. I told you the quantum fluctuator needed recalibration, squeaked an irritated voice from somewhere amid the clutter. And I told you the fluctuator is fine. It's the dimensional variance compensator that's out of alignment, replied an equally agitated second voice. Blukik and Dryba, the plumbers, resident Galvan technicians, were engaged in their usual bickering, apparently oblivious to Ben's entrance. Despite their constant disagreements, the two were brilliant in their own right, if not quite at the level of their distant relative azimuth. Gentlemen, Ben called out, his voice cutting through their argument. We have a problem. Both Galvans turned, their large eyes widening further at Ben's appearance. Goodness, Dryba gasped, adjusting his glasses. You look terrible. Thanks, Ben replied dryly. I hadn't noticed. He's being sarcastic, Blukik stage whispered to his partner. I know he's being sarcastic. Dryba snapped back. The Omnitrix malfunctioned during battle, Ben interrupted, lifting his wrist. But that's not the whole story. When it finally activated, it created some kind of hybrid transformation. Heatblast and Diamondhead combined. The Galvans exchanged significant glances. That's not supposed to happen, Blukik stated flatly. The genetic safeguards should prevent cross-contamination of DNA samples, Dryba added, already scurrying down to a lower platform where diagnostic equipment awaited. Unless what? Ben prompted, placing his wrist on the scanner they indicated. Dryba activated the device, and holographic representations of the Omnitrix's internal mechanisms bloomed into the air above them. Unless the buffer partitions are failing. The Omnitrix contains thousands of DNA samples, each isolated from the others by quantum-locked barriers. If those barriers degrade, Blukik continued, the samples could cross-contaminate, Dryba finished. Or worse, they said in unison, a rare moment of perfect agreement. The holographic display turned red, warning symbols appearing throughout the schematic. Ben watched grimly as the Galvan's expressions grew increasingly concerned. They chittered to each other in rapid-fire technical jargon, occasionally switching to their native language when standard couldn't convey the needed precision. How bad is it? Ben finally asked. Dryba cleared his throat. The primary containment systems are operating at 62% efficiency. The secondary systems have compensated thus far, but they're showing strain at 81% capacity. The energy emission from your hybrid transformation accelerated the degradation, Blukik added. The system attempted an automatic repair cycle, but the damage appears structural, Dryba concluded. Not something self-repair protocols can address. Ben absorbed this silently, his expression unreadable. Can you fix it? The Galvans exchanged another look. Possibly, Dryba hedged, with sufficient time and resources. And Azimuth's direct assistance, Blukik added pointedly. Which we don't have, Ben sighed. Azimuth, the Omnitrix's creator, had been increasingly distant in recent years, focused on projects that spanned galaxies and dimensions. Getting his attention for anything short of universal annihilation had proven challenging. There is. Dryba hesitated, glancing nervously at his colleague. There might be another option. Blukik shook his head vigorously. We are not suggesting that. It's completely irresponsible and potentially catastrophic. What? Ben demanded. What option? Dryba fidgeted with his glasses. Theoretically speaking, the Omnitrix's core functionality could be transferred to a new housing, with roved containment systems and updated programming. You mean build a new Omnitrix, Ben said slowly. Not exactly, Dryba clarified. More like an evolution of the current design. Using the original as a foundation but addressing its structural limitations. Which would be incredibly dangerous, Blukik interjected. Not to mention potentially violating Azimuth's intellectual property rights. Ben's eyes narrowed. A child nearly died today because this watch failed. If it happens again, more people could be hurt or killed. He straightened. Decision made. Show me what we need to do. The Galvan's protest died as the lab doors slid open again, revealing a tall, slender woman in a plumber uniform with lieutenant insignia. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical braid, and her olive complexion contrasted with startlingly blue eyes that took in the scene with clinical precision. Starting projects without me, Tennyson. I'm wounded. Despite her words, Elena Validis's tone remained cool and professional. I leave Earth for 3 years, and everything falls apart. Ben's expression softened slightly. Elena, I heard you were back, but I didn't expect to see you here. Magister Tennyson reassigned me to headquarters effective immediately. Apparently, my expertise is needed. Her gaze flicked to the holographic display. And based on that disaster you're examining, he wasn't exaggerating. Elena Validis had a complicated history with both Ben and the plumbers. Once infected and controlled by nanochips, she had eventually overcome their influence through sheer force of will, a feat previously thought impossible. Her experience had left her with a unique understanding of the microscopic technology, which she had parlayed into leadership of the plumbers' nanotechnology division. Lieutenant Validis has been pioneering integration of nanite technology with traditional plumber equipment, Dryba explained, seeming relieved by her arrival. Her work on adaptive microstructures could be relevant to our theoretical discussion. Elena raised an eyebrow. Theoretical. We need to rebuild the Omnitrix, Ben said bluntly. Or build something better. The current model is failing. And people got hurt today because of it. I read the preliminary report on my way in, Elena acknowledged. Crystalline entity, civilian casualties, unauthorized hybrid transformation. Quite the homecoming briefing. She moved closer to the diagnostic display, eyes narrowing as she analyzed the data. The quantum barriers are degrading at an exponential rate. Within 3 months, complete failure is probable. Quote, 3 months. Ben echoed, alarmed. Blukik, Dryba, you didn't mention a timeline. The Galvans looked apologetic. We were still calculating probabilities, Dryba defended. The nanite subsystem integration introduces additional variables, Blukik added. Nanite subsystem. Ben looked between them. What are you talking about? Alina's expression turned grave. They didn't tell you. The Omnitrix has been compromised at a fundamental level. There are nanoscopic machines throughout its structure that don't match any known Galvan design. The room L silent save for the gentle hum of equipment. Show me, Ben finally said, voice dangerously quiet. Elena nodded to the Galvans, who manipulated the holographic display. The image zoomed to a microscopic view, revealing the Omnitrix's internal structure. Amid the familiar Galvan technology, tiny machines moved with purpose, repairing, modifying, and in some cases, replacing original components. Those look like, Ben began. Nanochips, Elena confirmed, or a derivative technology, but they're not mine, and they're not from the original swarm. These are something new. How long have they been there? Ben demanded, turning to the Galvans. Blukik and Dryba consulted their readings. Based on integration patterns and replacement rates, approximately 7 months, Dryba estimated. Ben's mind raced back. 7 months ago, he'd been off-world, helping to mediate a territorial dispute in the Andromeda Galaxy. The Omnitrix had been damaged during a particularly heated negotiation that devolved into violence. Afterward, it had undergone an unusually long repair cycle but had seemed to function normally. Until today. Could this be sabotage? He asked quietly. Possibly, Elena replied, but if so, it's extraordinarily sophisticated. These nanites aren't destroying the Omnitrix, they're modifying it, changing its fundamental architecture toward some unknown purpose. The hybrid transformation, Ben realized. That wasn't a malfunction, it was the first manifestation of whatever these things are trying to do. Which means we have even less time than we thought, Elena concluded. If the nanites succeed in whatever reprogramming they're attempting, the Omnitrix could become something very different from what Azimuth intended. Something more powerful than they could handle, Ben muttered, thinking of the devastating energy release from his hybrid form. Something that could put Earth at risk. So, do we try to remove the nanites, or? Elena let the question hang. Ben looked at the Galvans. Could you purge these things from the current system? Blukik shook his head. They're too deeply integrated now. Removing them would destroy critical components. Then we have no choice, Ben decided. We build something new, something better. An Omnitrix that can handle hybrid transformations safely, that can take whatever these nanites were trying to create and perfect it. The ultimate Omnitrix, Dryba breathed, eyes wide. That's a terrible name, Blukik critiqued. It is not. It literally reuses a term already applied to the evolutionary function. While the Galvans bickered, Ben met Elena's gaze. Her blue eyes were calculating, weighing variables and risks with the cool detachment that had become her hallmark since overcoming the nanochip infection. This won't be simple, she warned him. We'd be creating something unprecedented, without Azimuth's guidance. The potential for disaster is still less than the certainty of disaster if we do nothing, Ben finished. I know the risks, Elena. But I've spent my entire adult life trusting this device with not just my life, but the lives of everyone I'm sworn to protect. If it's compromised, I need to get ahead of the problem. She studied him for a moment longer, then nodded. All right, Tennyson, but we do this my way, methodical, cautious, with exhaustive testing before each implementation phase. Agreed. And Elena. He hesitated. Thank you. Your timing couldn't have been better. A ghost of a smile crossed her features. Serendipity, or something more calculated. The universe works in mysterious ways. She turned to the Galvans, who had progressed to insulting each other's academic credentials. Gentlemen, we have work to do. I need a complete inventory of available materials, secure workspace protocols, and isolation chambers for testing. As Elena took command of the situation with effortless authority, Ben found himself watching her with newfound appreciation. The angry, unstable woman she'd once been had transformed into someone formidable in an entirely different way. Her focus, intelligence, and determination radiated from her like a physical force. One question. He interrupted their planning. Why are the nanites only acting now? If they've been there for 7 months, why wait until today? Elena frowned thoughtfully. Good question. Nanite. Colonies typically execute their programming immediately unless specifically designed to wait for a trigger condition. She turned to the Galvans. Were there any unusual energy signatures or transmissions detected during today's incident? Anything that might have activated dormant programming? Dryba consulted the readings. There was a spike in background radiation just before the Omnitrix malfunction. It appears to be related to the crystalline entity's unstable atomic structure. Transdimensional radiation, Ben remembered. That's what drove Prism into its berserker state. Transdimensional. Alina's eyebrows rose. That's unusually specific. Let me see those readings. She studied the data with intense concentration, occasionally murmuring technical terms under her breath. Finally, she looked up, expression grave. These readings match experimental research being conducted at the edges of known space, attempts to breach dimensional barriers for faster-than-light travel. It's highly restricted technology, even among plumbers. So someone with access to restricted plumber tech planted nanites in the Omnitrix, designed to activate when exposed to very specific radiation. Ben summarized. That doesn't sound like a coincidence. It sounds like a targeted attack, Elena agreed. Or an experiment, with you as the unwitting test subject. The implications hung heavily in the air. Someone with advanced knowledge and resources had compromised the Omnitrix for unknown purposes, and had potentially engineered today's entire incident as a trigger. All the more reason to move forward with the ultimate Omnitrix project, Ben said firmly. But we keep this between us for now. No reports, no documentation that could be accessed by whoever is behind this. Agreed, Elena nodded. Blukik, Dryba, can you secure this lab against external monitoring? Already done, Dryba replied proudly. Standard protocol when dealing with Omnitrix diagnostics. Good. Then let's get to work. Ben checked his communicator, noting multiple missed calls from Rook and his grandfather. I need to check on the injured civilian and file my incident report. Cover for me, say you're running extended diagnostics on the Omnitrix. And when people ask why you're not wearing it, Elena pointed out practically. Ben reached into his pocket and withdrew a small device, a convincing replica of the Omnitrix designed for undercover missions where the real thing might be too recognizable. I'll wear this. It doesn't function, but it looks genuine enough to avoid questions. Clever, Elena acknowledged. We'll begin preliminary designs and material acquisition. Return when you can. As Ben turned to leave, the Omnitrix on the diagnostic plate suddenly flared to life, its display cycling rapidly through alien silhouettes before settling on an unfamiliar pattern, a swirling vortex of green energy. Then, with a high-pitched whine, it emitted a focused beam of energy upward. Get down, Ben shouted, diving toward Elena to push her clear of the beam's path. The energy pulse struck a containment field that automatically activated above the diagnostic plate, fragmenting into countless smaller beams that danced and writhed within the barrier. For a few tense seconds, the light show continued, mesmerizing in its complexity. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the display ceased, leaving the Omnitrix inert once more. What was that? Ben asked, becoming acutely aware that he was still effectively shielding Elena with his body. He moved away awkwardly, extending a hand to help her up. She accepted his assistance with remarkable composure, immediately turning her attention to the monitoring equipment. Energy discharge, focused and modulated. Not random. There was pattern and purpose. Her eyes widened as she examined the readings. It was a transmission. The nanites just sent a signal. To who? Ben demanded. And what did it say? Unknown on both counts, she admitted. But the beam was aimed directly upward, at high intensity. Given sufficient power, it could reach orbit, Ben finished grimly. Or beyond. The four exchanged concerned looks, the implications clear. Whatever had compromised the Omnitrix was communicating with someone, or something, far from Earth. And given the sophisticated nature of the nanite infiltration, that entity was unlikely to have benign intentions. The ultimate Omnitrix just became a priority, Ben decided. Not just to prevent malfunctions, but to counter whatever is coming our way. The medical wing of Plu. MBER headquarters reflected the organization's interspecies mandate, with facilities designed to accommodate physiologies ranging from humanoid to utterly alien. Human doctors worked alongside xenobiologists, combining their expertise to treat injuries and illnesses that often defied conventional medicine. Ben stood outside the recovery room, watching through the observation window as a young boy slept in a specialized healing pod. Microbotic regenerators hovered over his small form, repairing damage to his lung and ribcage where a crystalline fragment had penetrated. The boy's parents sat beside him, the mother holding his hand through the pod's access port, the father's arm protectively around her shoulders. Their younger daughter had fallen asleep in a chair nearby, emotional exhaustion having finally overcome her. "He will recover fully," a gentle voice assured Ben. Magister Patelade, the Piscis Volan who served as plumber medical coordinator, joined him at the window. "The fragment missed his heart by centimeters, but our technology can repair the damage. Another day in the pod, and he'll be ready for discharge." "He shouldn't have been injured at all," Ben said quietly. "I should have contained the situation faster." Patelade's amphibian features arranged themselves into a sympathetic expression. "Self-recrimination is a luxury we cannot afford, Magister Tennyson. You saved countless lives today. Focus on that." Ben nodded, though the weight remained on his shoulders. "Has anyone interviewed them about what they saw?" "The family, I mean." "Standard procedure," Patelade confirmed. "They reported that just before your final confrontation with the entity, they observed unusual behavior from your transformation device. The father described it as glitching out, I believe were his words. Then you transformed into something he didn't recognize, like two aliens at once." "Observant," Ben commented. "Did they seem concerned by what they saw?" Patelade tilted his head curiously. "Only insofar as their child was injured. The mother expressed gratitude that you found a way to stop the creature, regardless of the unusual circumstances." He paused. "Is there a reason they should be concerned?" "No," Ben said quickly, too quickly. "Just wondering about public perception. New transformations sometimes cause unease." "Indeed." Patelade didn't sound entirely convinced. "The diagnostic team reports that the crystalline remains are completely inert. Harmless now, though they've retained some interesting properties. The science division is quite excited." "Good. That's good." Ben's attention remained on the family. The boy had shifted in his sleep, and his mother was stroking his hair soothingly. The sight twisted something in Ben's chest. A reminder of what had nearly been lost today. "You should rest," Patelade suggested gently. "You've declined medical attention for your own injuries, but that doesn't mean you don't need recovery time." "I will," Ben promised. "Just a few more things to take care of first." Patelade nodded, recognizing the dismissal. As the Piscis Volan moved away to attend to other patients, Ben continued to watch the family for a moment longer. Then, with reluctance, he turned and headed toward the administrative section where his grandfather would be waiting for his report. The corridors seemed unusually busy, even for post-crisis operations. Plumbers of various species moved with purpose, and the general atmosphere held an undercurrent of tension. Ben caught fragments of conversation as H.E. passed. Mentions of unusual energy readings, communications disruptions, and security protocols. Something bigger was happening, beyond the incident downtown. But for now, Ben had more immediate concerns. He found Max Tennyson in the central command hub, surrounded by holographic displays showing various sectors of Bellwood and beyond. At 68, the elder Tennyson remained imposing, his hair now completely white. Face lined with experience, but posture still military straight and eyes sharp as ever. As Magistratus of Earth operations, he coordinated plumber activities across the planet. A responsibility he bore with characteristic steadiness. "Ben," Max acknowledged as his grandson approached. "Medical reports say you refused treatment." "It's nothing serious," Ben dismissed. "Flesh wounds, already bandaged. I've had worse from soccer practice." Max's expression suggested he wasn't amused by the deflection but wouldn't press the issue. "We've contained the affected area downtown. Cover story is in place. Experimental propulsion system malfunction from a visiting research vessel. Property damage is extensive, but insurance protocols for alien-related incidents will cover civilian losses." "And the boy who was injured?" "Full medical care, compensation for trauma, and the standard non-disclosure agreements." Max's expression softened slightly. "He'll be fine, Ben. Kids are resilient." Ben nodded, the knot in his chest loosening marginally. "The entity, Prism, was it intentionally targeting civilians?" "Initial analysis suggests no. It appears to have been in pain, lashing out instinctively rather than with malice. Max manipulated one of the displays, bringing up sensor readings from the incident. The transdimensional radiation that affected it came from an unauthorized experiment at Billion's tower. Let me guess, Billy Billion's playing with technology he doesn't understand. Again, his research division, yes, though Billy himself claims no knowledge of the project. We've seized the equipment and are interviewing personnel. Something about the situation nagged at Ben. Seems convenient. Experimental radiation that happens to drive an alien berserk, right in the middle of downtown. Max's eyes sharpened. You suspect deliberate action. Ben hesitated, weighing how much to reveal. Until he understood more about the nanite infiltration, Sharon. His suspicions broadly could tip off whoever was behind it. Even his grandfather, as trustworthy as he was, regularly interacted with numerous plumbers who could be involved. Just thinking aloud, Ben said finally. The timing was unfortunate. Max studied him for a moment longer, clearly sensing the evasion. Blukik and Dryba report they're running extended diagnostics on the Omnitrix. Summit. Hing about unusual energy signatures during your transformation. Standard procedure after any irregularity, Ben replied smoothly, tapping the replica on his wrist. This is a temporary substitute until they finish. Max clearly wasn't entirely satisfied but didn't push further. Elena Validus has returned from her assignment in the Andromeda sector. I've tasked her with assisting in the diagnostic process. Given her expertise with microscale technologies. I saw her earlier, Ben confirmed. She seems different. 3 years commanding her own division would change anyone, Max noted. She's become one of our finest officers, focused, disciplined, innovative. Her work with nanite integration has revolutionized several of our containment technologies. Ben couldn't help but remember the wild-eyed, desperate Elena who had once been controlled by the nanochips, who had nearly killed him more than once in her obsessive state. Her transformation into the cool, controlled Pfizer he'd met in the lab was remarkable. Yet beneath her professional exterior, he'd glimpsed something familiar, intensity and determination that had merely been channeled rather than eliminated. I'm glad she's back, Ben said sincerely. We could use her expertise. Max nodded, then glanced at one of the secondary displays. There's something else you should know. We've detected unusual energy signatures in orbit, specifically in the sector where plumber monitoring satellites are positioned. Brief transmissions of unknown origin, using frequencies typically reserved for deep space communication. Ben's pulse quickened. The timing couldn't be coincidental. When did these transmissions start? First one was detected approximately 30 minutes ago, Max replied. Several more have followed at irregular intervals. The pattern suggests targeted communication rather than broad dispersal. 30 minutes. Right around when the Omnitrix had emitted its energy beam in the lab. Ben kept his expression neutral with effort. Any idea what's being transmitted? Not yet. The encryption is unlike anything in our databases. Max frowned. I don't like coincidences, especially not on DAYS when transdimensional experiments and crystalline berserkers are involved. I'll look into it, Ben offered. After I get some rest, he added, seeing his grandfather's expression. See that you do. Max's tone softened. You did good work today, Ben, despite the complications. Don't forget that. Ben nodded, feeling a familiar mixture of pride and pressure at his grandfather's words. Max had been his mentor, his guide through the complexities of wielding the Omnitrix responsibly. Would he approve of Ben's plan to create an entirely new device? Or would he see it as reckless, potentially dangerous experimentation? Those were questions for another time. For now, Ben needed to return to the lab and continue work on the ultimate Omnitrix before whatever was coming arrived. The residential section of Plumber headquarters offered accommodations for off-world visitors and personnel who needed to remain on site during ongoing operations. Ben maintained a modest apartment there. For occasions when returning to his civilian residence was impractical. After leaving Max, he headed there to shower and change before returning to the lab. The hot water sluiced away dried blood and concrete dust, revealing an impressive collection of bruises across his torso where Prism's attacks had connected. Ben examined the wound in his side dispassionately. Clean, no longer bleeding, prophase. Shanali bandaged by a field medic before he'd refused further treatment. It would heal quickly enough. As the adrenaline of the day finally ebbed, exhaustion hit like a physical weight. Ben braced his hands against the shower wall, letting his head hang as water beat against his neck and shoulders. For a moment, he permitted himself to feel the full impact of what had happened: the Omnitrix's failure, the child's injury, the revelation of nanite infiltration, the mysterious transmissions. Someone had compromised his most trusted tool, potentially endangering countless lives in the process. Someone with access to restricted technology and intimate knowledge of the Omnitrix's workings. The list of individuals meeting those criteria was worryingly short, and none of the names on it were enemies he'd want to face. Ben shut off the water and dried himself mechanically, mind racing through possibilities and countermeasures. By the time he'd dressed in fresh plumber uniform and clipped the replica Omnitrix to his wrist, determination had replaced fatigue. Whatever was coming, he would be ready, with a new Omnitrix that wouldn't fail when lives were at stake. His communicator chimed as he exited the residential block. Rook's ID flashed on the small screen. Ben, his partner greeted when he accepted the call. I am at the containment facility with the crystalline remains. There are anomalies you should observe. What kind of anomalies? Ben asked, immediately alert. The fragments are exhibiting molecular reorganization at a quantum level, Rook replied, his formal dictio. Reflecting the seriousness of the situation. Magister Patellidae indicated they were inert, but our more detailed analysis suggests otherwise. They appear to be communicating. With what? Unknown. But the energy signature matches the orbital transmissions Magistratus Tennyson identified. Ben's grip tightened on the communicator. I'll be right there. Don't let anyone move those fragments. Understood. I have already established a level 3 containment protocol. Ben hurried through the corridors toward the science sector, mind racing. If the crystalline fragments were somehow linked to the nanites in the Omnitrix and the mysterious transmissions, they formed a pattern, potentially an attack vector from multiple angles. The containment facility occupied a secure wing of the science division, isolated from the main complex by a series of airlocks and energy barriers. Ben passed through security checkpoints, his Magister clearance granting immediate access. Inside, he found Rook standing before a heavily shielded observation chamber, where glittering crystal fragments floated in a null-gravity field. Ben, Rook acknowledged, observed the molecular activity. Graphic display showed a magnified view of the crystalline structure. At first glance, the fragments appeared static, but as Ben watched, subtle shifts occurred at the atomic level, realignments that formed complex, ever-changing patterns. It's like they're reconfiguring themselves, Ben observed. Precisely, Rook confirmed. The pattern suggests deliberate manipulation rather than random degradation. And there is more. He adjusted the display, highlighting specific energy emissions from the fragments. These pulses occur at irregular but patterned intervals, matching exactly the timing of the orbital transmissions. They're not just communicating, they're coordinating, Ben realized. What about the transdimensional radiation from the Billions Tower experiment? Any trace of that in the fragments? Rook looked surprised at the question. Yes, actually, the crystals appear to have absorbed and stored the radiation, though its concentration is diminishing over time. The pieces were starting to fit together, forming a picture Ben didn't like at all. So theoretical scenario. Someone initiates an unauthorized experiment generating transdimensional radiation. That radiation affects a crystalline entity, driving it berserk in a populated area, ensuring I would respond. The radiation also triggers dormant nanites in the Omnitrix, causing a specific malfunction that forces a hybrid transformation. That transformation somehow activates or enables the crystal fragments to communicate with something in orbit. And now they're all coordinating toward what? Rook's expression grew grave. When you present the sequence in that manner, it suggests a highly sophisticated and coordinated attack. But to what end? I don't know yet, Ben admitted. But I intend to find out. He studied the fragments again. Have you identified what the crystals are transmitting? The actual content. We have isolated fragments of data, but encryption prevents complete analysis. Rook manipulated the display again, showing strings of complex code. However, there is one repeating element we have decoded. He highlighted a particular sequence. This appears to be a countdown. To what? Based on the current rate of decrease, approximately 58 hours from now. Ben's eyes narrowed. So we have just over 2 days before whatever this is culminates. Just enough time to complete a prototype of the ultimate Omnitrix, if we work around the clock. He glanced at Rook, making a quick decision. His partner had been with him through countless crises, and his technical expertise could prove invaluable. I need to tell you something, but it stays between us for now. Rook nodded solemnly. Of course. Ben briefly outlined the nanite infiltration of the Omnitrix and the plan to create the ultimate Omnitrix as a countermeasure. Rook listened without interruption, his expression growing increasingly concerned. This is most troubling, he said when Ben finished. Quote, the level of sophistication required to compromise the Omnitrix in such a manner suggests an adversary of considerable resources and intelligence. Exactly why I need your help, Ben confirmed. Our technical knowledge and tactical thinking could be crucial to completing the prototype before this countdown ends. I am at your service, Rook said immediately. Though I must point out that eating without Magistratus Tennyson's knowledge is problematic from a procedural standpoint. Noted, Ben acknowledged. But until we know who we can trust, we keep the circle small. The nanites LD only have been introduced by someone with high-level plumber access or extraordinary technical capabilities. A concerning combination of requirements, Rook agreed. Very well, I will assist with the Ultimate Omnitrix project while continuing to monitor the crystal fragments. If they provide additional intelligence, you will be immediately informed. Ben clasped his partner's shoulder gratefully. Thank you. Now, I need to get back to the lab. Elena and the Galvans should have preliminary designs by now. As he turned to leave, Rook called after him. Ben, whatever entity is behind T.S. clearly went to extraordinary lengths to create very specific circumstances. The question is not just what they are planning, but why they needed your hybrid transformation to accomplish it. The observation hung in the air, unsettling in its implications. Ben had been manipulated, used as an unwitting catalyst for something still unfolding. The thought stoked a slow-burning anger beneath his exhaustion, not just at the violation, but at the potential harm it had caused to innocent bystanders. All the more reason to turn their plan against them, he replied grimly. Whatever they're expecting from the compromised Omnitrix, the ultimate Omnitrix will give them something else entirely. The Galvan lab had transformed in Ben's absence. Additional equipment had been brought in, Holog. Rafik designs floated at various workstations, and the air hummed with concentrated activity. Elena stood at the central platform, manipulating a complex three-dimensional schematic with practiced gestures. She had changed from her plumber uniform into more practical lab attire, form-fitting black bodysuit with specialized pockets and attachments for tools and components. Progress report, Ben requested as he entered, causing all three scientists to look up. Prototype design is 68% complete, Elena replied without preamble. We've resolved the quantum buffer architecture to prevent DNA contamination while still allowing controlled hybridization under specific parameters. Translation. We can make hybrid transformations safe, Dryba clarified unnecessarily. We've also incorporated superior power regulation systems. Blukik added. The energy discharge from today's transformation would be properly contained and channeled. But we've hit complications with the interface between biological and technological components, Elena continued, highlighting a particular section of the schematic. The original Omnitrix uses Galvan quantum entanglement to facilitate the transformation process. Replicating that without Azimuth's direct input is challenging. What's the workaround? Ben asked, joining her at the display. Elena hesitated, exchanging glances with the Galvans. We're considering alternative approaches. My nanite technology could theoretically bridge the gap, creating an adaptive interface between your genetic material and the alien DNA samples. You want to inject me with nanites? Ben asked, understandably wary given his history with such technology. Not exactly, Elena clarified. The nanites would be contained within the ultimate Omnitrix itself, serving as translators between systems rather than entering your bloodstream. Think of them as microscopic ambassadors, ensuring all parts of the device communicate smoothly. The advantage, Dryba interjected, is that Elena's nanites could recognize and neutralize the existing infiltration. They would essentially overwrite the unauthorized programming. The disadvantage, Blukik countered, is that we'd be introducing yet another complex system, increasing potential failure points. Ben considered this, studying the schematic. What's your assessment, Elena? Bottom line, she met his gaze directly. It's the fastest viable solution given our time constraints. Not without risk, but manageable, especially with my direct oversight of the nanite programming. Ben nodded slowly. Do it, but I want redundant safeguards and continuous monitoring. He turned to the Galvans. What materials are we still missing? We require crystalline matrix components for the quantum buffer, Dryba replied. Specifically, Petrosepian crystals would be ideal, given their natural dimensional properties. Which is problematic since Petropia was destroyed and subsequently reconstructed with altered mineral composition, Blukik added. Actually, Ben said thoughtfully, I might have a solution for that. The crystalline entity from today, Prism, its fragments exhibited unusual properties. Rook's analysis showed they've absorbed transdimensional radiation and are capable of complex reconfiguration. Alina's eyes lit with interest. Programmable crystalline structures with dimensional properties. That could be perfect. Can we retrieve a sample? Dryba asked eagerly. Not without raising questions, Ben cautioned. The fragments are under containment protocols, with multiple scientists monitoring them. He paused, considering. But I'm a magister. I could order a sample transferred here for specialized analysis. That would create a documentation trail, Elena pointed out. Quote, not if we keep it completely official but vague, Ben countered. Request the sample for analysis related to Omnitrix stabilization, without specifics. True in essence, if not in detail. Elena nodded appreciatively. Clever. It would withstand basic scrutiny without revealing our actual intentions. I'll handle it, Ben decided. What else do we need? For the next hour, they refined the day. IGN and compiled a list of required materials. Some were readily available in plumber inventory, others would require creative acquisition. Throughout the discussion, Ben found himself increasingly pressed by Elena's technical knowledge and innovative approach to problem solving. She moved between theoretical concepts and practical implementation with effortless grace, often anticipating issues before they arose. You've changed, he observed during a brief pause while the Galvans bickered over power coupling specifications. Elena glanced up from her calculations. 3 years commanding a specialized division will do that. Not to mention overcoming a parasitic nanite infection that tried to subsume my personality. Her tone remained neutral, but Ben caught the flicker of old pain behind her words. I didn't mean. I know what you meant, she interrupted, not unkindly. And yes, I've changed. Had to. The old Elena couldn't have contained the residual nanites in her system, could NT have turned them from parasites into tools. She set down her tablet, meeting his gaze directly. I learned that fighting against what happened to me was less effective than embracing it, understand. Ding it completely and then redirecting it toward better purposes. The insight struck Ben as unexpectedly profound. That's actually exactly what we're doing with the ultimate Omnitrix. Taking mething potentially dangerous and redirecting it. A hint of a smile touched Elena's lips. Pattern recognition was always your strong suit, Tennyson. When you weren't being hopelessly oblivious. Me, oblivious. Ben feigned offense, grateful for the momentary lightening of the atmosphere. Please, you couldn't recognize romantic interest if it wore a flashing neon sign. Ben felt an unexpected warmth rise to his face. Before he could formulate a response, the lab's security alert chimed softly, indicating someone requesting entry. Expecting company? Elena asked, instantly professional again. Should be Rook, Ben confirmed, checking the security feed. I briefed him on the situation. The door slid open to admit the Ravanagander, who carried a sealed containment unit. I have procured the crystalline sample as requested, he announced. Official channels, with appropriate documentation citing specialized Omnitrix compatibility testing, as justification. Perfect, Ben approved. Any changes in the main sample's behavior? Transmission frequency has increased by 12%, Rook reported, setting the container on a designated workspace. And the countdown continues to decrease at a steady rate. Elena approached the container with evident interest. How much material did you bring? Approximately 26 grams, Rook replied. The smallest amount that would not arouse Suspicion while providing sufficient quantity for experimentation. More than enough, she assessed, activating the workspace's containment field before opening the inner container. The crystal fragments rose gently in the null gravity field, glittering with inner light that shifted through subtle color variations. Fascinating structure. Definitely not standard Petrosapian composition. The molecular chains exhibit signs of radiation-induced mutation, Blukik observed, adjusting scanning equipment. Not mutation, Dryba corrected. Evolution. The radiation has accelerated natural processes that would typically take millennia. Quote, "If you're both quite finished," Elena interjected, "we need to determine if we can program these crystals to serve as quantum buffers." She manipulated the containment field, separating a tiny fragment for analysis. "I'll need to introduce marker nanites to map the crystal's response capabilities." As Elena worked, Ben moved to Rook's side. "Any updates from command about the orbital transmissions?" "Magistratus Tennyson has dispatched reconnaissance drones to investigate," Rook reported quietly. "Initial telemetry suggests a small object in geosynchronous orbit, approximately 3.2 meters in diameter. Too small for conventional spacecraft, possibly a specialized satellite or probe. And the transmissions are directed at it." "Affirmative. From multiple points on Earth's surface. Not just our facility." Ben's brow furrowed. "So whatever planted the nanites in the Omnitrix has assets in other locations." "That's concerning." "Indeed. They've taken the liberty of compiling a list of plumber operations that might have provided opportunity for the Omnitrix to be compromised 7 months ago." Rook handed Ben a data pad. "I believe the territorial dispute in the Andromeda Galaxy deserves particular scrutiny." Ben skimmed the information, memories of that mission surfacing. The negotiations had been tense, verging on hostile, with Reaper representatives from 6 different planetary systems arguing over resource rights to an asteroid belt rich in rare elements. Violence had broken out during the 3rd day, and Ben had been forced to transform repeatedly to contain the situation. The Omnitrix had been damaged when the quantum arbitrator, Ben realized suddenly. Remember, that supposedly neutral third party who offered to scan the Omnitrix after it was damaged. Rook's eyes widened. Of course, the entity who claimed diplomatic status and specialized knowledge of Galvan technology. "We permitted temporary access to the Omnitrix for diagnostic purposes. Perfect opportunity to introduce nanites," Ben concluded grimly. "And we never questioned it because the arbitrator came with impeccable credentials, which were verified through standard plumber protocols." Rook added, "If those credentials were falsified, it would require high-level access to plumber systems." Ben finished. "The circle of suspects keeps shrinking, and I don't like where it's pointing." Quote, a sudden exclamation from Elena drew their attention. "Got it," she announced triumphantly. "The crystal structure is not only programmable but remarkably receptive to nanite interfacing. It's as if it was designed for this purpose. Or evolved specifically to interact with similar technology," Ben suggested, approaching the workstation. The original entity, Prism, might have been more than just a random victim of the radiation. What if it was deliberately exposed, knowing how it would react? Elena considered this, eyes narrowing. Creating a specialized delivery system for whatever plan is unfolding. That would explain the countdown and the coordinated transmissions. She manipulated the crystal fragment, which now responded to her commands, structuring itself into various configurations. "With this material, we can complete the quantum buffer design and move to prototype assembly." "Timeline?" Ben asked. 18 hours for basic functionality, she estimated. Another 12 to incorporate advanced features and safeguards. "That leaves us cutting it very close to the countdown," Rook observed. "Then we work faster," Ben decided. "Rook, coordinate with field teams to monitor any additional transmission sources or unusual energy signatures. We need to know if other pieces are moving into place. Elena, you and the Galvans focus on core functionality first. Additional features later. I'll handle material acquisition and security." As they dispersed to their tasks, Ben felt a familiar tension settling across his shoulders, the weight of responsibility. Of decisions that could affect countless lives. But beneath it ran a current of determination. Whatever was coming, he would meet it with the ultimate Omnitrix ready. The Mysterious countdown continued its inexorable progress, each passing minute bringing them closer to whatever lay at its conclusion. In a secure lab beneath Bellwood, 4 individuals raced against Me to complete a device unlike any the universe had seen before, a new Omnitrix, evolved beyond its creator's design. A truly ultimate Omnitrix. Chapter 1 End # Chapter 2, Ripple Effects. The lab's emergency lighting cast everything in a dim red glow, transforming familiar faces into somber masks. 16 hours into the ultimate Omnitrix project, fatigue hung heavy in the air, a tangible presence. Alongside the scent of ozone and hot circuitry, Ben stood motionless, watching Alina's hands move with surgical precision as she manipulated microscopic components into alignment. Power regulation M. O'Doul is integrating with the crystalline buffer, she reported, voice steady despite having worked without rest. Quantum field stability at 72% and rising. Bluecock and Dryba monitor ED readouts from their elevated platform, their typical bickering reduced to terse technical exchanges after hours of concentrated effort. Rook observed from a nearby console, coordinating external security while providing technical input where needed. Integration complete, Elena announced, straightening with carefully controlled movements. Ready for preliminary power test. Ben approached, studying the device taking shape on the workbench. Unlike the bulky, watch-like original, this prototype resembled an elegant armband, its surface a seamless blend of advanced alloys and crystalline elements harvested from the mysterious entity. At its center lay a recessed dial of familiar design, the one component they'd salvaged from the original Omnitrix. Moment of truth, Ben said quietly. Containment fields at maximum. Multiple layers of energy barriers shimmered into place around the testing area, a necessary precaution after their first attempt had overloaded 3 backup generators and melted a reinforced workbench. Elena initiated the startup sequence, her fingers dancing across holographic controls with practiced confidence. Power flow commencing at 10% capacity. He device remained inert for several seconds, then pulsed with emerald light that seemed to ripple beneath its surface like liquid energy. Diagnostic displays flared to life, streams of data cascading faster than human eyes could track. Quantum buffer engaging, Dryba reported. Field coherence optimal, power curve stabilizing at 48%, Bluecock added, uncharacteristic excitement in his voice. No signs of cascade feedback. It's working, Rook observed, moving closer to study the readouts. The crystalline matrix is successfully containing the transdimensional energy bleed that occurred in previous tests. Ben felt a surge of cautious optimism. After multiple failed attempts and one near-catastrophic overload, they finally had a stable prototype. How many transformation sequences can it handle? Elena consulted the diagnostics. Based on current parameters, approximately 30 minutes of continuous transformation before requiring a recharge cycle. Less if utilizing hybrid forms. Better than we projected, Ben acknowledged. What about the DNA sequencing protocols? That's where we hit a wall, Elena admitted, powering down the prototype carefully. We can transfer the existing transformation catalog from the original Omnitrix, but the hybridization programming is incomplete. Without it, attempting hybrid forms would still be dangerous. Ben frowned thoughtfully. What's missing exactly? A stable interface between your genetic code and the hybrid combinations, Elena explained. The original Omnitrix relied on Azimuth's proprietary algorithm, to prevent biological rejection during transformation. We've replicated most of that functionality, but the hybrid forms introduce exponentially more complex interactions. My nanite solution could theoretically bridge the gap, she continued, but programming them to manage the genetic transitions precisely enough would require. Would require what? Ben prompted when she trailed off. Alina's expression turned calculating. A complete mapping of your DNA as it interacts with alien genetic material during transformation. Something we've never had access to because it occurs in real time during each transformation. So we need to observe an actual transformation to complete the programming, Ben concluded. Which we can't do without a functioning device. Precisely our dilemma, Rook confirmed. Ben stared at the prototype thoughtfully. Unless we use the original Omnitrix one last time. Capture the transformation data while deliberately initiating a hybrid form. CE fell as his companions considered the implications. That would be extremely dangerous, Elena finally said. The nanite contamination has progressed significantly. Another hybrid transformation old accelerate whatever process they're attempting. Or it could give us exactly the data we need to complete the ultimate Omnitrix, Ben countered. Sometimes you have to take calculated risks. The risk calculation in this scenario is unfavorable, Rook objected. We still have 39 hours before the countdown completes. Alternative approaches. A shrill alarm cut through their debate, not the lab's security system, but the broader plumber emergency alert. Rook immediately accessed the central communication network. Unidentified spacecraft entering Earth's atmosphere, he reported grimly. Bypassed outer defense grid using diplomatic override codes. Location. Ben demanded, already moving toward the door. Projected landing zone. Bellwood Plaza. 3 minutes until touchdown. Ben exchanged glances with Elena. Convenient timing. Too convenient, she agreed. The prototype isn't ready for field testing. Keep working, Ben decided. Rook and I will handle our unexpected visitor. He paused at the door. And Elena, if we're not back in an hour, proceed with your best judgment on the hybrid mapping problem. Her eyes narrowed slightly, understanding his implicit authorization. Be careful, Tennyson. We don't have enough data to predict how the Omnitrix might behave if you're forced to use it. When am I not careful? Ben flashed a quick, confident SM. That didn't quite reach his eyes before departing with Rook. Elena turned back to the prototype, expression resolute. Blukik, Dryba, recalibrate the quantum buffer for increased energy absorption. If Ben has to use the original Omnitrix, we need to be ready to capture every scrap of data it generates. Bellwood Plaza had been evacuated within minutes of the spacecraft alert, Plumber Pro. Tokol's functioning with well-rehearsed efficiency. Energy barriers now surrounded the central courtyard, keeping civilians at a safe distance while specialized teams took defensive positions around the perimeter. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the plaza's gleaming surfaces, a stark contrast to the tension gripping the assembled forces. Ben and Rook arrived as the spacecraft broke through cloud cover, a sleek, iridescent vessel that shimmered between visibility and translucence as it descended. Its design was unfamiliar, combining elements from multiple alien architectures into something deliberately enigmatic. Diplomatic override codes, Ben muttered, studying the approaching craft. Who would have that kind of access? A concerning list of possibilities, Rook replied, adjusting his proto-tool to scanning mode. Energy readings are inconsistent with standard propulsion systems. There appears to be a dimensional displacement component. Max Tennyson approached from the command post, his expression grave. Ben, Rook, glad you're here. He eyed the replica Omnitrix on Ben's wrist with barely concealed concern. I understand your actual device is still undergoing diagnostics. Final calibration phase. Ben confirmed smoothly. Nothing to worry about. Max didn't look convinced but let it pass. Our visitor used Inkersine diplomatic credentials to bypass security. Very specific, high-level codes that haven't been utilized in over 3 years. Inkersine. Ben's eyebrows rose. That narrows the possibilities considerably. The spacecraft settled onto the plaza with remarkable precision. Its landing struts extending silently to touch down without disturbing so much as a dust particle. For several tense moments, nothing happened. No hatches opened, no communication attempts registered. Dramatic entrance, Ben commented. Very on brand. As if responding to his words, the vessel's hull rippled like water, a section flowing away to form an elegant gangway. A single figure emerged, silhouetted against the craft's interior lighting before stepping fully into view. Adia, Empress of the Inkersine Empire, had changed significantly from their last encounter. Gone was the impetuous teenage ruler, replaced by a poised young woman whose bearing radiated confident authority. Her traditional Inkersine military attire had evolved into a more diplomatic ensemble that still maintained distinctly martial elements. A ceremonial blade hung at her hip, alongside what appeared to be an advanced energy weapon of unfamiliar design. Well, she drawled, golden eyes surveying the assembled plumbers with amused disdain. Quite the welcome committee. A girl could feel special. Empress Adia, Max acknowledged formally. Your arrival was unscheduled and your approach methods concerning. Standard protocols apply. Boring as ever, Tennyson Sr., Adia sighed dramatically. Her gaze shifted to Ben, a calculating smile spreading across her features. But you brought me my favorite human. How thoughtful. Ben stepped forward, maintaining professional distance. It's been a while, Adia. Still running the Empire, I see. Reformed the Empire, darling, she corrected. Descending the gangway with fluid grace. We're a commercial powerhouse now. Conquest is so last generation. Economic domination is much more profitable and far less messy. Which doesn't explain why you're here, unannounced, with diplomatic codes that should have been decommissioned years ago, Ben pointed out. Adia's smile remained fixed, but her eyes hardened slightly. Perhaps I missed your charming company. She glanced meaningfully at his wrist. Or perhaps I felt a disturbance in the galactic neighborhood that required personal investigation. Ben maintained a neutral expression, though inwardly he tensed. Not sure what you mean. Don't play coy, Ben, Adia chided. It doesn't suit you. Approximately 17 hours ago, a very distinctive energy signature erupted from this region of space, a signature that made certain parties throughout the galaxy sit up and take notice. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. The kind of signature that suggests someone's playing with technology they perhaps shouldn't be. If you've detected unusual energy readings, the proper channel would be formal diplomatic inquiry, Rook interjected smoothly. Chi's tongue flicked out briefly, an increasing gesture of dismissal. Proper channels are for people with time to waste. And time, my dear Ravanagander, appears to be in rather short supply. The implications hung in the air. Impossible to miss. Somehow, Adia knew about the countdown. Perhaps we should continue this conversation in a more private setting, Max suggested, his tone making it clear this wasn't merely a courtesy. How hospitable, Adia replied, her smile never wavering. Lead the way. As Max escorted the Increasing Empress toward the secure transport, Ben caught Rook's eye and gave a slight nod. His partner immediately understood, discreetly activating enhanced scanning protocols to monitor both Adia and her vessel. You're looking well, Ben, Adia commented as they walked. More mature than I remember. The years have been kind. Thanks. You've changed too. Ruling an empire will do that, she replied with a casual shrug that didn't quite mask the weight behind her words. Especially when you inherit a mess of expansionist policies and military overreach. Turns out replacing conquest with commerce requires actual diplomacy. Who knew? Despite his suspicion, Ben found himself curious about this evolved version of a former enemy. I heard rumors the Increasing Empire had shifted focus. Didn't entirely believe them, because peaceful Increasines seemed implausible. Her smile turned sardonic. We're pragmatists at heart, Ben. War stopped being profitable. Simple as that. There was more to it than simple economics. Ben could see it in her eyes. A complexity that hadn't been present in the impetuous princess he'd known years ago. Whatever had shaped Adia into this calculating empress would make for an interesting story, but now wasn't the time for reminiscence. What do you know about the energy signature? He asked directly as they reached the transport. Adia's expression grew serious. Enough to know it wasn't an accident. Enough to be concerned about what follows. She glanced at his wrist again. And enough to wonder why you're wearing a replica instead of the real thing. Ben felt a chill run down his spine. Very few people in the galaxy would be able to distinguish the replica from the genuine Omnitrix at a glance, and fewer still would have reason to look closely enough to notice. Before he could formulate a response, Max intervened. We'll discuss all relevant details at headquarters, Empress. Security protocols. Of course, Adia agreed smoothly. Security is paramount in these unstable times. As they boarded the transport, Ben couldn't shake the feeling that Adia's arrival represented more than a diplomatic complication. The Increasing Empress had always played her own game, pursuing advantage with ruthless determination. If she had crossed interstellar distances to investigate the energy signature, her motives went far beyond casual interest. The question was whether those motives aligned with their interests, or with whoever had compromised the Omnitrix in the first place. Elena worked with focused intensity, her movements economical as she refined the prototype's neural interface. Ultimate Omnitrix had evolved substantially in the hours since Ben's departure, its elegant design now complemented by sophisticated internal architecture that represented a quantum leap beyond the original device. Nanite programming complete, she announced, straightening to stretch her cramped muscles. Adaptive response algorithms are ready for genetic mapping data. The energy containment systems are at optimal configuration. Dryba reported from his workstation. We've increased capacity by 42% without compromising structural integrity. And I've completed the modified DNA catalog integration, Blukik added. All existing transformation sequences transferred and indexed according to compatibility parameters. Elena nodded approval, impressed despite her exhaustion. The Galvans might bicker constantly, but their technical brilliance was undeniable. Together, they'd accomplished in hours what should have taken weeks or months. Status of the remote monitoring system? She asked, moving to check their communication encryptions. Fully operational, Dryba confirmed. If Ben activates the original Omnitrix, we'll capture every quantum fluctuation in real time. The lab doors slid open, revealing a plumber cadet who hesitated at the threshold, clearly intimidated by the restricted area. Lieutenant Validus, there's someone at Security Checkpoint 3 requesting access to this section. Says it's regarding specialized materials for the Omnitrix project. Elena frowned. We didn't request additional materials. Who is it? She identified herself as Dr. Kai Green, xenoarchaeological consultant. Has Magister-level clearance codes but requires final authorization for this specific lab. Elena and the Galvans exchanged glances. Did Magister Tennyson send her? Elena asked. No, ma'am. She says she's responding to unusual energy signatures consistent with Petrosapian-derived technology. Claims to have brought stabilizing components that might be relevant to your work. This development raised immediate red flags. The project was supposedly compartmentalized, with only a handful of individuals aware of the specific technologies involved. For an outside specialist to identify their use of crystalline components suggested either remarkable insight or concerning information leakage. Maintain her at the checkpoint, Elena decided. I'll come evaluate the situation personally. Yes, ma'am. Quote. After the cadet departed, Elena turned to the Galvans. Continue refinement work, but initiate security lockdown protocols if I'm not back within 15 minutes. No one enters without my explicit verification. You suspect a breach attempt? Dryba asked nervously. I suspect everything right now, Elena replied grimly. Ben and Rook are dealing with one unexpected visitor. Now we have another. Both arriving within hours of each other, both somehow aware of technology they shouldn't know about. Coincidences are statistically improbable in current circumstances, Blukik agreed. Elena retrieved her standard-issue blaster from its charging station, checking its settings before holstering it beneath her lab coat. Keep working. And keep monitoring. G for any Omnitrix activation signals from Ben. The corridors of the secured research wing were unusually quiet, most personnel having been reassigned to deal with Adia's unexpected arrival. Elena moved with purposeful strides, mentally reviewing what she knew about Kai Green. The name was familiar from Ben's files, a former romantic interest who had become a respected xenoarchaeologist specializing in ancient alien technologies. No obvious connection to their current situation, which made her sudden appearance all the more suspicious. Security Checkpoint 3 was a reinforced chamber WHER. Visitors could be thoroughly scanned before gaining access to restricted areas. Through the observation panel, Elena saw a woman in her mid-20s with long black hair and features that reflected her Native American heritage. She wore practical field attire, cargo pants, reinforced boots, and a fitted jacket with multiple specialized pockets. A compact case sat beside her, secured to her wrist by an unobtrusive but clearly advanced locking mechanism. Kai Green looked up as Elena entered the checkpoint, dark eyes instantly assessing. Lieutenant Validus, your reputation precedes you. Dr. Green, Elena acknowledged coolly. You're a long way from your usual research sites. Unusual circumstances call for unusual travel itineraries, Kai replied with a hint of a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I was in deep space studying crystalline formations in the Petrosapian asteroid belt when my instruments detected a very specific energy signature from Earth. The kind of signature that typically precedes dimensional instability. Elena maintained a neutral expression. Plumber Headquarters handles numerous exotic energy sources in routine operations. This was neither routine nor properly contained, Kai countered, her professional demeanor momentarily slipping to reveal genuine concern. I've spent 5 years studying the aftermath of dimensional ruptures across 17 systems. The pattern I detected matches early-stage quantum destabilization with a 94% correlation. Despite her suspicions, Elena found herself intrigued by the technical assessment. You said you brought stabilizing components. Kai gestured to the case beside her. Modified petrosapian crystals treated with chrono-stabilizing compounds. They can anchor quantum fluctuations, preventing cascading dimensional effects. She met Elena's gaze directly. I'm not here to interfere with whatever project you're working on. I'm here because the alternative to stabilization could be catastrophic for this entire region of space. Elena studied the other woman carefully. Her expertise appeared genuine, as did her concern. The stabilizing components, if legitimate, could potentially address one of Th's remaining challenges in the ultimate Omnitrix design, preventing dimensional bleed-through during hybrid transformations. But trusting an unexpected arrival with access to their secret project remained problematic. How did you identify this lab specifically as the source? Elena asked, the key question that had been bothering her. I didn't, Kai admitted readily. I traced the signature to Th's facility and presented my credentials. When I explained the nature of the energy pattern, security directed me here. She raised an eyebrow, which confirms you're working with something that generates transdimensional energy. A clever move, using plumber protocols to narrow down the source without specific prior knowledge. It lent credibility to Kai's explanation, though Elena remained cautious. Your history with Ben Tennyson isn't in your official credentials, Elena noted, watching carefully for reaction. A flicker of surprise crossed Kai's features before her professional mask returned. Ancient history. We were teenagers with a complicated relationship that eventually settled into occasional professional collaboration. Her expression turned questioning. As Ben involved in whatever's generating these energy signatures? The slight emphasis on his name carried unspoken meaning, personal knowledge, shared history. Elena made her decision based on practicality rather than emotional considerations. If the dimensional stabilizers were genuine, they could prove invaluable. Follow me, she said briskly. But understand that you're entering a classified project with need-to-know restrictions. Touch nothing without explicit permission, and all materials you brought remain subject to confiscation if deemed necessary. Understood, Kai agreed, retrieving her case. For what it's worth, Lieutenant, I've dedicated my career to preventing dimensional catastrophes, not causing them. Whatever you're working on, my only interest is ensuring it doesn't tear a hole in reality. Elena activated her communicator as they walked. Blukik, Dryba, we'll have a consultant joining us temporarily. Prepare the secondary containment field for material testing. The Galvans overlap. Ping questions were cut short as Elena ended the transmission. Fair warning, Drive, Green, if your materials prove incompatible or your intentions questionable, your security clearance won't prevent consequences. Noted, Kai replied, seeming unperturbed by the threat. Though I suspect we're on the same side here, Lieutenant. Different approaches, perhaps, but aligned interests. As they approached the lab, Elena wondered whether that assessment would prove accurate, and how Ben would react to finding Kai Green involved in the ultimate Omnitrix project. Personal history had a way of complicating already complex situations. The countdown continued its relentless progress, now visible on multiple monitors throughout the facility. 37 hours remaining until whatever awaited at 0. The plumber headquarters conference room had been designed for delicate diplomatic negotiations, its circular arrangement eliminating power dynamics created by traditional rectangular tables. Currently, it held just 4 individuals. Ben, Rook, Max, and Empress Adia, who lounged in her chair with deliberate casualness that contrasted with the plumber's more formal postures. So, Adia begged, and after preliminary courtesies had been exchanged, shall we dispense with the tedious dance around the obvious? You're developing something new with the Omnitrix technology. Something that sent less across half the galaxy approximately 17 hours ago. What makes you think? Ben started, but Adia cut him off with an impatient gesture. Please, I have monitoring stations throughout Is sector specifically calibrated to detect certain energy signatures. The pulse that erupted from Bellwood was unmistakable, quantum fluctuations with transdimensional properties, carrying distinctive markers of Omnitrix technology. Her expression hardened. The same markers that multiple less than reputable organizations are now racing to investigate. Max leaned forward slightly. Your SUG. Sting others detected this energy signature and are en route to Earth. Not suggesting. Confirming. Adia extracted a small device from her belt, placing it on the table. It projected a holographic display of local space, highlighting multiple vessels approaching Earth from different vectors. My intelligence network has identified at least 7 separate groups with active interest. Bounty hunters, technology thieves, opportunistic warlords, the usual vultures. Why would you share this intelligence with us? Rook asked, studying the display with narrowed eyes. Adia's smile was thin, enlightened self-interest. My dear Ravanagander, the Inkersine Empire has restructured around stability and commerce. The last thing we need is potentially catastrophic technology falling into unpredictable hands, or worse, creating dimensional instabilities that could disrupt established trade routes. You're worried about your profit margins, Ben translated, unable to keep the skepticism from his voice. I'm worried about preventing another galactic crisis, Adia countered sharply, which tend to happen with alarming frequency around you, Tennyson. She leaned forward, dropping the casual act. Whatever you're developing, it's drawing dangerous attention that could destabilize more than just Earth. Ben exchanged glances with his grandfather, a silent communication passing between them. Max gave an almost imperceptible nod, authorizing limited disclosure. The Omnitrix was compromised, Ben explained carefully. Nanite infiltration at a fundamental level, altering its basic functions. We detected the problem after a failed transformation yesterday. The crystalline entity incident downtown, Adia surmised. News travels fast. We're developing a solution, Ben continued, deliberately vague. The energy signature detected was an unexpected side effect of preliminary testing. Adia's golden eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Nanite infiltration requires sophisticated technology and intimate knowledge of Galvan engineering. Not many entities possess both. We have our suspicions, Max said neutrally. I imagine you do. Adia tapped a claw against the table thoughtfully. Is Azimuth involved in your solution? Not currently, Ben admitted. Adia actually laughed. You're recreating the most sophisticated transformation device in the galaxy without its creator's input. Brave. Possibly suicidal, but brave. We have capable experts, Rook defended. I'm sure you do. Adia's amusement faded to seriousness. But you should know, the energy signature contained embedded information. Data packets encoded within the quantum fluctuations themselves. This revelation landed like a physical blow. Ben straightened, all pretense of casualness abandoned. What kind of information? Technical specifications, primarily. Enough for a competent engineer to understand the general principles of what you're developing. Adia's expression was grave, which explains why every technology thief in this sector is suddenly interested in Bellwood. The test broadcast our prototype designs, Ben realized with growing alarm. But that's impossible. We had containment fields at maximum. Conventional containment doesn't address quantum entanglement properties, Adia pointed out. Especially if your compromised Omnitrix was designed to facilitate such transmissions. The implications were staggering. If the nanite infiltration had specifically engineered the Omnitrix to broadcast its technical specifications during testing, it suggested a level of premeditation and technical sophistication far beyond what they'd assumed. Why tell us this? Max asked, his tone reflecting professional suspicion. The Inkersine Empire hasn't historically been an ally of Earth. The empire of my father's generation waged pointless wars for minimal gain, Adia replied, a hint of bitterness edging her words. I inherited a bankrupt military dictatorship on the verge of collapse. Reforming it into a commercial power required difficult choices and unexpected alliances. She focused on Ben, including the realization that stability serves our interests better than conquest. Your work as a universal protector, irritating as it sometimes is, promotes the kind of stability we now depend on. It was a surprisingly frank admission from the once ruthless princess who had attempted galactic conquest multiple times. Ben studied her with renewed interest, seeing the weight of leadership in her bearing, the calculated pragmatism that had replaced youthful impulsiveness. The approaching ships, he redirected, gesturing to the holographic display. Timeframes. The closest is approximately 6 hours out, Adia confirmed. Manned by a Partick. a largely unsavory group of technology pirates who specialize in reverse engineering advanced devices. We'll strengthen planetary defenses, Max decided, already activating his communicator to issue orders. They'll find alternatives, Adia predicted. Bellwood is notoriously porous to determined infiltrators, as my own past expeditions demonstrated. Ben couldn't argue with that assessment. Art's designated alien interaction zones had always been vulnerable to determined individuals with appropriate technology. So we prepare for incursion rather than just orbital defense. A sensible approach, Adia agreed. She hesitated, then added, I have resources that could assist. My vessel carries advanced sensor technology specifically designed to track the kind of cloaking systems these pirates employ. You're offering help. Ben couldn't keep the surprise from his voice. Adia's expression was unreadable. I'm offering pragmatic cooperation to address a shared concern. Don't mistake it for sentiment, Tennyson. Despite her words, Ben sensed something more complex in her offer, perhaps not sentiment exactly, but definitely more than mere tactical advantage. Before he could explore this further, his communicator chimed with Alina's priority signal. Excuse me, he said, stepping away from the table to take the call privately. Ben, Alina's voice came through clearly, though pitched low for discretion. We have a development here. Kai Green arrived with specialized stabilizing technology that could significantly improve the prototype. Kai. Ben couldn't mask his surprise. What's she doing at Plumber headquarters? Apparently detecting dimensional energy signatures from halfway across the galaxy, Elena replied dryly. Her credentials check out, and the materials she brought appear legitimate. I've granted temporary access to test compatibility with our systems. Ben processed this unexpected development. Kai Green, brilliant, independent, and their history together complicated at best. Having her involved in the ultimate Omnitrix project introduced variables he hadn't anticipated. Is that going to be a problem? Elena asked when his silence extended too long. No, Ben decided. If her technology can help, we need it. Just maintain security protocols. Already implemented. How's your diplomatic situation? Ben glanced back at the conference table, where Adia was explaining something to Max with animated gestures. Complicated. We've got incoming hostiles, approximately 6 hours out. Technology pirates targeting the prototype. Na absorbed this without visible reaction. The countdown is at 36 hours and decreasing. Timeline compression is becoming problematic. Understood. We'll wrap this up and return to the lab soon. Ben ended the transmission and rejoined the others, finding the conversation had progressed to tactical planning. My security forces can establish a perimeter around your facility, Adia was offering. Small, specialized teams with experience countering infiltration tactics. Incursion troops on Earth would require significant diplomatic clearances, Max pointed out. Already arranged, Adia countered smoothly. The commercial treaty signed last year includes provisions for security cooperation under specific circumstances. I believe imminent technological theft threatening multiple systems qualifies. Ben had to admire her preparedness. Adia had clearly anticipated every bureaucratic obstacle before even landing on Earth. We appreciate the offer, he said carefully. But any external forces would need to operate under Plumber command structure. Naturally, Adia agreed with suspicious readiness. I understand chain of command concerns. The ease of her acquiescence raised Ben's suspicions. But practical considerations took precedence. If technology pirates were incoming, additional security resources could prove essential, especially since much of their own pay. Arsenal were still dealing with aftermath from yesterday's crystalline entity incident. Rook will coordinate integration of your security assets with our existing defenses, Max decided. Limited deployment, focused on outer perimeter monitoring and early warning systems. Perfect, Adia smiled, though the expression didn't reach her calculating eyes. I'll transmit deployment protocols immediately. As arrangements were finalized, Ben found himself watching Adia with mixed feelings. The Incursion Empress had matured into a formidable leader whose motivations remained opaque despite her apparent cooperation. Something about her sudden appearance and convenient intelligence still didn't sit right, but dismissing potentially crucial assistance based on past history would be foolish. I'd like to see this prototype you're developing, Adia said suddenly, addressing Ben directly. As someone contributing security resources, understanding what we're protecting seems reasonable. That won't be possible, Ben replied firmly. The project remains classified even to most plumber personnel. Adia's expression cooled slightly. Trust issues, Tennyson. After I've been so forthcoming. Practical security concerns, he corrected. The fewer individuals with direct knowledge, the better, especially given the broadcast vulnerability you identified. She conceded the point with a slight inclination of her head. Fair enough, though I hope you recognize that my technical expertise might prove valuable. The Inkersine Empire has made significant advances in transformation technology since our last encounter. That casual revelation sent alarm bells ringing in Ben's mind. Inkersine transformation technology had historically been crude and unstable compared to the Omnitrix. If they'd made significant advances, it suggested either remarkable independent development or access to restricted Galvan knowledge, neither option particularly reassuring. We'll keep that in mind, he replied neutrally, catching Rook's eye to signal his concern. As the meeting concluded with finalized security arrangements, Ben's communicator vibrated with another incoming message, this time from Blukak and Dryba directly. The text-only communication was uncharacteristically concise. Prototype energy signature increasing without input. Possible resonance effect with approaching vessels. Recommend immediate return. Ben showed the message to Rook discreetly, then addressed the others. We need to check on the project status. Magistratus Tennyson, perhaps you could finalize deployment details with Empress Adia. Max recognized the urgency in his grandson's manner. Of course, Empress, shall we review the integration protocols in the command center? Lead the way, Adia agreed, though her sharp gaze lingered on Ben with unconcealed curiosity. We'll continue our discussion later, Tennyson. Once they'd departed, Ben and Rook moved quickly toward the secured research wing, maintaining casual appearances until safely in a private transport tube. The timing of these developments is statistically improbable, Rook observed once they were alone. Adia's arrival, approaching hostiles, Kai Green's appearance, and now energy signature resonance, all within hours of our initial prototype test. Almost like someone orchestrated a perfect storm of complications, Ben agreed grimly. The question is who benefits from the chaos. Perhaps chaos itself is the benefit, Rook suggested. The more divided our attention, the less effectively we can secure the prototype or investigate the original compromise. It was an unsettling theory that aligned with the evidence. Someone was deliberately creating multiple simultaneous crises, forcing them to react rather than act with careful planning. The countdown added pressure that precluded thorough analysis, pushing them toward improvisation and potential mistakes. We need to accelerate the prototype completion, Ben decided as they approached the lab. Whatever's coming, I want the ultimate Omnitrix operational before it hits. Even without complete safety protocols? Rook questioned. Better an imperfect tool than no tool at all, Ben replied. Sometimes you have to work with what you have, not what you wish you had. The lab doors opened to reveal an unexpected tableau, Elena and Kai working in seamless coordination at the central workstation, manipulating crystalline structures with specialized equipment while the Galvans monitored energy fluctuations from their platform. The prototype Ultimate Omnitrix now pulsed with a more stable emerald glow, its structure visibly evolved from what Ben had seen hours earlier. All four scientists looked up as Ben and Rook entered, their expressions varying from relief to concern. The resonance effects, Ben asked immediately. Stabilized, Elena reported. Dr. Green's chronocrystals provided the dampening field we needed. The prototype no longer broadcasts its signature, even unintentionally. Kai straightened, meeting Ben's gaze with professional composure that didn't quite mask the complexity beneath. Ben, it's been a while, almost 2 years, he acknowledged. The last time they'd seen each other had been during an investigation into ancient Galvan outposts, a professional collaboration that had reaffirmed their transition from romantic history to respectful colleagues. Didn't expect to find you here. That makes 2 of us, she replied with a hint of wry humor. I was studying dimensional fractures in deep space when I detected the energy signature. Followed it here out of professional concern. Her expertise has proven invaluable, Elena interjected, perhaps sensing the personal undercurrents. The chronocrystal, have resolved our dimensional bleeding issues and increased transformation stability projections by 62%. Ben approached the workstation, studying the evolved prototype. Progress report. We're approaching functional completion, Dryba reported excitedly. Integration of Dr. Green's stabilizing technology has accelerated our timeline significantly. However, Blukik countered, we still CK the hybrid transformation mapping data. Without it, the device remains incomplete. That's become more urgent, Ben informed them. We have incoming hostiles targeting the prototype, approximately 5 hours out. And a countdown at. He checked the nearest display. 35 hours remaining. The pirates Adia warned about. Elena asked, her expression sharpening. Yes, wait, how did you know about Adia? Plumber command updates, Elena explained. The arrival of an Inkersine Empress tends to generate administrative chatter, especially when she starts deploying troops around headquarters. Speaking of unexpected developments, Kai interjected, your prototype is exhibiting some fascinating properties beyond what I'd expect from a standard transformation device. Her tone was casual, but her eyes were keenly observant, almost like it's designed for something more ambitious than straightforward species shifting. Ben exchanged glances with Elena, a silent communication passing between them. How much had Kai deduced about the ultimate Omnitrix's true capabilities? The project has evolved to address specific threats, Ben said carefully. Kai raised an eyebrow but didn't press further. Well, whatever you're developing, the dimensional stabilization should prevent any more unintended broadcasts. The chronocrystals create a localized pocket of space-time that isolates quantum fluctuations. Which solves one problem but leaves us with the hybrid mapping issue, Elena redirected, turning to Ben. We need to make a decision about capturing transformation data from the original Omnitrix. Ben nodded grimly. Given the compressed timeline, I don't see an alternative. We need the mapping data to complete the prototype before either the pirates arrive or the countdown reaches 0. What countdown? Kai asked sharply. Another exchange of glances, another rapid calculation of need-to-know considerations. We detected a synchronized counting sequence emanating from multiple sources. Rook explained, deciding transparency served their interests better than evasion. It appears to be coordinated with the nanite infiltration of the original Omnitrix. Kai absorbed this with professional interest. Counting down to what? That's the multi-trillion credit question, Ben replied. We're working under the assumption it's nothing good. A reasonable assumption, Kai acknowledged. In my experience, mysterious countdowns rarely herald birthday parties. She turned to Elena. If you're considering using the compromised device for data capture, I have additional stabilizers that could help contain whatever happens. Elena nodded appreciatively. Set them up around the testing chamber. We'll need maximum isolation to prevent further transmissions. As Kai moved to retrieve equipment from her case, Ben approached Elena and lowered his voice. You're sure about bringing her into this? Her expertise is legitimate and her contributions significant, Elena replied quietly. Without her stabilizers, we'd be at least 12 hours behind our current progress. And yes, I've maintained appropriate security protocols, including limited information sharing. Ben nodded, trusting Elena's assessment. What about the hybrid mapping process? How dangerous are we talking? Elena's expression turned grave. Theoretically, we can capture the transformation data while maintaining containment. Practically, the nanites in the original Omnitrix will almost certainly react to activation, possibly accelerating whatever process they're implementing. She met his gaze directly. It's a calculated risk, Ben. Your call. The responsibility settled heavily on his shoulders, weighing the danger of using the compromised Omnitrix against the need F. Or a functional ultimate Omnitrix before whatever awaited at 0. Neither option was without significant risk. Prepare the containment chamber and monitoring systems, he decided. We proceed with data capture in 30 minutes. Elena nodded, immediately turning to coordinate preparations with the team. Ben moved to assist Rook with security measures, conscious of time's inexorable progression and the approaching threat from space. The lab hummed with focused activity as final preparations took shape. Kai's chronocrystals created a shimmering field around the testing chamber, their pale blue energy forming intricate patterns that fluctuated in mesmerizing synchronicity. Elena calibrated sensor arrays with Blukik and Dryba, establishing multiple redundant systems to capture every aspect of the transformation process. Containment field at maximum capacity, Rook reported from the security console. External monitors detecting no unusual activity in surrounding sectors. Quantum buffer primed for data reception. Dryba added. Chronostabilizers aligned and active, Kai confirmed, making final adjustments to her equipment. This should prevent dimensional bleeding during the transformation process. Ben stood at the entrance to the testing chamber, the original Omnitrix, retrieved from secure storage, heavy on his wrist. Its familiar weight now carried ominous implications. The device that had defined his identity for years potentially compromised beyond redemption. Monitoring systems calibrated, Elena announced, approaching Ben with final instructions. We've rammed the sensors to capture complete quantum state data throughout the transformation sequence. Once inside, initiate a standard transformation first, heat blast, as discussed. Hold that form for 10 seconds to establish baseline readings. Then attempt to shift directly to Diamond Head without reverting to human form. Forcing the hybrid state, Ben confirmed, understanding the process. The moment the hybrid stabilizes, capture complete mapping data and I revert immediately. Exactly, Elena nodded. At the first sign of containment failure or unexpected energy buildup, we abort and force emergency reversion. Her professional demeanor softened slightly. Be careful in there, Ben. We're in uncharted territory. When am I not careful? He repeated his earlier quip, though this time with a more genuine smile. Besides, I've got the best team monitoring the process. As he entered the containment chamber and the door sealed behind him, Ben took a deep breath, centering himself. The familiar weight of the original Omnitrix on his wrist felt simultaneously reassuring and threatening, like greeting an old friend while suspecting they might be plotting betrayal. Systems check complete. Elena's voice came through the communication system. We're ready when you are. Ben positioned himself in the center of the chamber, surrounded by overlapping fields of protective energy and chronostabilized space-time. Initiating transformation sequence, now. He activated the Omnitrix, cycling to heat blast silhouette with practiced ease and pressing the dial. Emerald energy engulfed him. The familiar sensation of molecular reconstruction washing through his body as human DNA temporarily receded, replaced by pyronite genetic material. The transformation completed smoothly, Florida. Mies erupting across his magma-like form as heat blast stood in the center of the chamber. So far, everything seemed normal. Baseline readings stable, Elena reported. Transformation sequence consistent with historical data. No anomalies detected. Proceeding to Phase 2. Ben replied, his voice carrying heat blast's characteristic resonant quality. Attempting direct transition to Diamond Head. This was the dangerous part, forcing the Omnitrix to shift between alien forms without returning to human state first, something the device wasn't designed to do under normal circumstances. Ben focused on the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, channeling his will into the neural interface as he'd done countless times before, but with a specific modification to the mental command. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Omnitrix symbol pulsed with unusual intensity, a high-pitched whine building as energy began to swirl around Heat Blast's form. The containment fields fluctuated, chronocrystals glowing brighter as they compensated for increasing dimensional strain. Energy levels rising exponentially, came Dryba's anxious voice. Quantum fluctuations exceeding predicted parameters. Chronostabilizers holding, Kai reported more calmly. Dimensional containment at 82% efficiency. Ben felt the transformation begin. Not the clean, defined process of a normal shift, but something raw and chaotic. Heat Blast's fiery structure began reconfiguring, crystalline elements emerging from magma-like flesh, creating impossible hybridizations of fire and diamond. Pain lanced through his transform. Ed body as conflicting genetic codes fought for dominance, neither fully asserting control. Ben, your vital signs are spiking, Elena warned, concern bleeding through her professional tone. The NAN-ites are active throughout the Omnitrix system, accelerating unknown protocols. Keep going, Ben managed through gritted teeth, forcing himself to maintain the unstable transformation. Almost there, the hybrid form stabilized momentarily, a being of crystalline fire, diamond structures housing living flame that pulsed with each heartbeat. Sensors throughout the chamber captured terabytes of data per second, mapping every quantum state and genetic configuration as the unprecedented transformation held. Then something unexpected happened. the Omnitrix symbol on the hybrid's chest began to glow with intense white light rather than the usual green, projecting a complex holographic pattern into the air before him. The pattern resembled nothing Ben recognized, not Galvan design language, not any alien script he'd encountered in his extensive experience. "What is that?" Alina's voice held controlled alarm. The energy signature just changed completely. Before anyone could respond, the holographic pattern collapsed inward, concentrating into a focused beam that struck the hybrid form directly. Ben felt a sensation like ice and fire simultaneously flooding his transformed body. The hybrid DNA structure becoming a conduit for something vast and impossible to comprehend. Containment fields failing, Blukik shouted. Chronostabilizers at maximum capacity, Kai reported. Our calm professionalism giving way to urgency. The dimensional barriers are buckling. Alina's voice cut through the mounting chaos. Ben, emergency reversion now. With tremendous effort, Ben slapped the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, triggering the emergency reversion protocol that should have immediately returned him to human form. Instead, the symbol pulsed erratically, energy cascading outward, rode in fractal patterns that distorted the very fabric of space within the chamber. For one timeless moment, Ben existed in multiple states simultaneously: human, pyronite, petrosapian, hybrid, and something else. Something beyond conventional understanding. Through this fragmented perception, he glimpsed what seemed like countless parallel realities overlapping, each showing different versions of himself, different Omnitrixes, different paths his life might have taken. Then reality snapped back with brutal finality. The energy discharge exploded outward, overwhelming containment fields and chronostabilizers alike. A blinding flash filled the chamber, followed by absolute stillness. When the emergency systems cleared the air, Ben stood in human form at the chamber's center, the original Omnitrix on his wrist now completely inert, its surface dark and lifeless. Around him, the containment technology lay in ruins, Kai's chronocrystals reduced to inert dust. The lab doors slammed open as Elena, Rook, and Kai rushed in, followed closely by the Galvans on their hover platform. Ben. Elena reached him first, medical scanner already evaluating his condition. "Are you all right? Your biome, etric readings went completely off scale." Ben looked at his companions with an expression of stunned realization. "I saw it," he said quietly. "During the transformation collapse, I saw what the nanites are trying to do." "What?" Kai asked, professional curiosity overcoming immediate concerns. "They're trying to create a bridge," Ben explained, his voice strengthening as the insight crystallized. "Not just between alien DNA sequences, but between dimensions. The hybrid form was never the goal, it was just a necessary step towards something bigger." Rook studied the now-dead Omnitrix with grave concern. "A dimensional bridge to where? And for what purpose?" "I couldn't see clearly," Ben admitted. "But whatever's on the other side, it's waiting, watching, and the countdown is bringing it closer." The implications hung heavily in the silent lab, interrupted only by the distant wail of security alarms suddenly blaring throughout the facility. "Perimeter breach," Rook identified immediately, checking his communicator. "Multiple points of infiltration detected. The pirates have arrived early." "How?" Elena demanded. "Adia's intelligence suggested we had hours before." She stopped abruptly, realization dawning. Unless she deliberately provided false information, or was misinformed herself, Ben countered, not ready to assume betrayal without evidence. He removed the dead Omnitrix from his wrist, placing it carefully on a nearby workbench. "Either way, we have hostiles incoming and our prototype isn't complete." "Actually," Dryba interjected excitedly, "the data capture was successful. Despite the containment failure, the sensors recorded complete mapping information during the stable phase of the hybrid transformation. We can complete the ultimate Omnitrix integration immediately," Blukik confirmed. Hope surged through Ben's exhaustion. "Do it. How long until it's operational?" 20 minutes for basic functionality, Elena estimated. "Another 20 for our complete integration and safety protocols." "We don't have 40 minutes, Rook warned, monitoring the security feeds. "Hostiles will reach this sector in approximately 15 minutes. Standard defensive protocols are engaged, but these appear to be sophisticated infiltrators with advanced countermeasures." Ben made an immediate decision. "Focus on basic functionality. Get me a working protot." YPE in 15 minutes, we can refine it after we deal with our uninvited guests. That means bypassing several safety systems, Elena cautioned. The device would be functional but potentially unstable. Story of my life. Ben replied with grim humor. Better an unstable Omnitrix than none at all against whatever's coming. As the team immediately set to work, Ben turned to Kai. Your stabilization technology was destroyed in the containment failure. Can you adapt any remaining components to help with the prototype? Kai nodded, already assessing possibilities. I have secondary systems in my case. Not as powerful as the primary chronocrystals, but they could provide limited dimensional stabilization. Do what you can, Ben directed before turning to Rook. Coordinate defense of this sector. Use Adia's forces if they're in position, but maintain direct plumber oversight. I want to know if they behave in any way that seems suspicious. Understood, Rook confirmed, already moving toward the security station to establish tactical coordination. Ben joined Elena at the central workstation, where the ultimate Omnitrix prototype pulsed with strengthening emerald light as Integ. Ration protocols processed the captured data. Despite the chaos surrounding them, he felt a growing sense of purpose. Whatever force had compromised the original Omnitrix, whatever awaited at the countdown's conclusion, they now had the means to confront it directly. The genetic mapping data is extraordinary, Elena commented as they worked, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces with precise movements. The hybrid form wasn't just combining two alien species, it was creating something entirely new, with properties that exceeded the sum of its parts. Can the ultimate Omnitrix safely reproduce that effect? Ben asked. Better, Elena replied with confident determination. It can improve upon it, with controlled evolution rather than chaotic combination. The nanite interface is adapting to the mapping data, creating stable pathways for hybrid transformations. The prototype structure continued to evolve before their eyes, internal components reconfiguring as the integration proceeded. What had begun as a theoretical concept less than 24 hours ago was rapidly becoming reality, a new Omnitrix, built to surpass its predecessor in every respect. Security alarms intensified, indicating the approaching intruders had breached another defensive layer. Through the lab's reinforced walls came the distant sound of energy weapons and the distinctive whine of plumber containment technology activating. We're running out of time, Ben observed, tension building in his muscles. Without a functioning Omnitrix, he felt uncomfortably vulnerable, a sensation he'd rarely experienced since finding the original device at age 10. Almost there, Elena assured him, making final adjustments to the nanite programming. Kai, status on the stabilizers. Integrated and functioning, Kai reported from her workstation. Limited capacity, but sufficient for initial operations. The lab doors slid open, admitting a harried-looking plumber officer. Magister Tennyson, hostiles have breached Level 3 security. They're using advanced phase-shifting technology to bypass barriers. Understood. Fall back to position Delta and prepare for containment protocols, Ben ordered. The officer saluted and departed as Ben turned back to Elena. We need that prototype now. 90 seconds, she promised, intensity radiating from her focused expression. The lab shook suddenly as an explosion rocked a nearby section. Emergency lights activated, bathing everything in pulsing red illumination. Rook's voice came through the communication system, tense but controlled. Ben, they've bypassed primary defenses using technology I've never encountered. Estimated arrival at our position in 2 minutes. Defenses? Ben asked sharply. Engaged but ineffective against their phasing capability, Rook reported. And Magistratus Tennyson reports that Adia's forces have suddenly withdrawn from their defensive positions. No explanation provided. So much for Allied support. Ben processed this betrayal, or tactical repositioning, with cool efficiency, prioritizing immediate threats. Maintain fallback positions and prepare for close-quarters engagement. Prototype ready, Elena announced. The ultimate Omnitrix now glowing with steady emerald light. Basic functionality confirmed, transformation catalog integrated, hybrid capabilities online but untested. Ben Aproa, ched as she lifted the device from its calibration platform. Unlike the bulky, watch-like original, the ultimate Omnitrix formed an elegant armband of interlocking technological and crystalline compounds that seemed to pulse with inner life. Quantum buffers stable, Dryba reported. DNA catalog successfully transferred and indexed. Nanite interface responsive and accepting neural commands, Bluecock added. Elena held Ben's gaze as she presented the device. It's as ready as it can be under current circumstances. Transformation functionality should be stable, but hybrid forms remain experimental. Use with caution. Ben accepted the ultimate Omnitrix, feeling its perfectly calibrated weight and subtle warmth. No time like the present for a field test, he commented with forced lightness. Securing the device to his left forearm. The moment contact was established, Ben felt a remarkable sensation, not the familiar mental link of the original Omnitrix, but something deeper, more integrated. The ultimate Omnitrix seemed to resonate with his thoughts, adapting to his neural patterns with unprecedented sensitivity. Neural interface establishing baseline connection, Elena observed, monitoring the readings. Integration proceeding at accelerated rate. The device is adapting to you much faster than projected. Another explosion, much closer this time, rocked the lab. Alarms intensified as Rook's voice came through with renewed urgency. Hostiles breaching final approach. 30 seconds. Ben activated the ultimate Omnitrix, a holographic interface materializing above its surface. Not the simple silhouette selection of the original, but an advanced three-dimensional representation of available transformations, organized by type, capability, and compatibility. Impressive upgrade to the user interface. He noted appreciatively, quickly selecting a familiar form for the first test. Ben, wait, Elena began, but too late. Ben had already triggered the transformation sequence. Emerald energy engulfing him as the ultimate Omnitrix executed its primary function for the first time. The sensation was both familiar and startlingly different, smoother, more controlled, yet somehow more comprehensive. As though the transformation extended deeper than previous experiences. When the energy dissipated, Diamond Head stood in Ben's place, but not quite the Petrosapian form he'd used countless times before. This version appeared more refined, crystal structures more precisely aligned, with subtle enhancements to joint mobility and structural integrity. Transformation successful, Ben observed, examining his crystalline arms with interest. But different, evolved somehow. The ultimate Omnitrix isn't just transforming you, Kai explained, studying readings from nearby sensors. It's optimizing the forms based on the genetic mapping data, creating ideal versions rather than standard templates. Fascinating implications, Elena began, scientific curiosity momentarily overriding tactical concerns. But perhaps best explored after. The lab doors exploded inward, shrapnel deflected by emergency force fields that activated milliseconds before impact. Thrug. The smoke strode three figures in advanced technological armor, their designs unlike anything Ben recognized. Phase-shifting generators hummed at their belts, while weapons of obvious alien design glowed with charged energy. Ben Tennyson, announced the central figure, voice distorted through an intimidating helmet. Our employer sends regards, and expresses interest in your new project. Diamond Head stepped forward, crystalline structure hardening for combat. Your employer should have made an appointment. We're not accepting uninvited guests today. We're not asking permission, replied the intruder, raising a weapon that emitted a high-frequency sonic pulse, a sound Ben knew would shatter Petrosapian crystal structures. Acting on instinct, he activated the ultimate Omnitrix again, mentally commanding a different transformation. The device responded instantly, emerald energy flaring as Diamond Head shifted not to human form, but directly to Echo, the Sonorosian form perfectly suited to counter sonic attacks. The transformation completed just as the sonic weapon discharged, its energy harmlessly absorbed by Echo's specialized physiology. Ben immediately countered a focused sonic blast that sent the central intruder crashing into the wall. The device functions, Bluecock exclaimed. Direct transformation between alien forms without human reversion, Dryba added with equal excitement. Unprecedented efficiency. The other two intruders spread out, deploying additional weapons and tactical devices. One launched small drones that immediately began scanning the lab, presumably searching for the ultimate Omnitrix prototype, not realizing Ben was already wearing it. With Echo's multiplication ability, Ben created 3 duplicates that engaged the intruders from multiple angles. Rook arrived through a secondary entrance, Prototool configured to capture mode as he joined the battle. Elena and Kai took defensive positions around the Galvans, protecting the crucial research data. The battle unfolded with chaotic intensity, the intruders demonstrating advanced combat capabilities that suggested professional military training rather than typical bounty hunters. Their armor resisted standard sonic attacks, adapting to Echo's frequency patterns with concerning speed. "They're more sophisticated than expected," Rook observed, narrowly dawed. Jing a phase-shifted attack that passed partially through solid matter. Ben mentally commanded another transformation, shifting from Echo to XLR8 in a flash of emerald light. The Kinesolaran form blurred into super-speed motion, creating a whirlwind effect that disrupted the intruders' coordination while confiscating their weapons with precision strikes. But as he moved to disable the third intruder, a strange sensation rippled through his transformed body, a momentary fluctuation in the ultimate Omnitrix's energy field. XLR8's speed faltered briefly, creating an opening that the intruder immediately exploited, deploying an energy net that ensnared Ben's Kinesolaran form. Containment successful, the intruder reported to an unseen communicator. "Target secured." "I wouldn't be so certain," Ben replied, accessing the ultimate Omnitrix's capabilities with greater intentionality. Instead of selecting another standard form, he mentally commanded a hybrid transformation, combining XLR8's speed with 4 arms strength in a configuration he visualized clearly. The ultimate Omnitrix pulsed with brilliant emerald light, energy patterns more complex than previous transformations as it executed the unprecedented command. The hybrid form that emerged tore through the energy net with ease, a blue-skinned, 4-armed speedster with XLR8's velocity and Tetraman power united in perfect balance. "That's new," Ben observed, his voice carrying harmonics of both species as he tested the hybrid form's capabilities. With lightning-fast quadruple punches, he neutralized the remaining intruders before they could react to the unexpected transformation. As the last opponent crashed unconscious to the floor, Ben maintained the hybrid form, assessing its stability and functionality. Unlike the chaotic, painful hybrid created by the compromised Omnitrix, this felt natural, controlled, 2 sets of alien DNA working in harmonious synergy rather than conflicting opposition. "Remarkable," Elena breathed, approaching with a scanner. "Perfect genetic integration with no signs of instability. The ultimate Omnitrix is performing beyond projected parameters." Ben reverted to human form with a thought. The transformation reversing smoothly. "It feels different, more like a partnership than a tool." He examined the device on his forearm with newfound appreciation. "Like it's anticipating my intentions rather than just executing commands." "The nanite interface," Elena explained. "It's creating adaptive neural pathways, learning from each transformation to optimize future sequences." Rook secured the unconscious intruders with containment fields, examining their equipment with professional interest. "These are not typical pirates. Their technology is military grade, with several components I cannot identify." "And conveniently arriving just as we completed the prototype," Kai observed, rejoining the group. "Almost like someone knew exactly when we'd be most vulnerable." Ben's communicator chimed with Max's priority signal. "Ben, status report," came his grandfather's tense voice. "We have multiple security breaches and Adia's forces have withdrawn without explanation." "We've neutralized the immediate threat," Ben reported. 3 infiltrators, currently contained. "And the project is operational." He decided against sharing details of the ultimate Omnitrix's successful deployment over potentially monitored channels. "Good work," Max acknowledged. "But we have a larger problem. Long-range sensors have detected a massive vessel entering the solar system. Much larger than the pirate ships Adia warned about." "Adia," Ben repeated, suspicion crystallizing. "Any sign of her own ship?" "None. She departed during the initial breach, claiming urgent communication requirements. Her escort vessels remain in orbit." The pieces aligned with uncomfortable clarity. She created a diversion, Ben realized. The pirates were a distraction while she read intelligence and positioned the larger vessel. "That would be a reasonable tactical assessment," Max agreed grimly. "The approaching ship will reach Earth orbit in approximately 12 hours. Ben checked the countdown display, which now showed 31 hours remaining. "That's no coincidence. Whatever's coming at 0, Adia wants to be here for it, with significant firepower backing her up." "We'll continue containment operations and prepare orbital defenses," Max decided. In the meantime, secure your project and prepare for potential escalation. After the communication ended, Ben turned to his team. Decision made. The ultimate Omnitrix works better than expected. Now we need to understand exactly what's coming when that countdown hits 0, and why Adia is so interested. The intruders might provide intelligence if properly interrogated, Rook suggested. And I can analyze the energy patterns from your hybrid transformation, Elena added. They might reveal more ABO. The dimensional bridge you glimpsed during the data capture. Kai approached, expression thoughtful. If dimensional boundaries are involved, my research might help identify potential breach points. I've mapped similar phenomena across multiple systems. Ben nodded, determination replacing fatigue. We work together on all fronts. We have 31 hours to prepare for whatever's coming, and now we have the ultimate Omnitrix to face it with. As they dispersed to their tasks, Ben studied the elegant device on his forearm, its emerald light pulsing in perfect synchronicity with his heartbeat. Created in crisis, born of necessity and innovation rather than Azimuth's careful planning, the ultimate Omnitrix represented something new, a true evolution of the technology that had defined his life. Whatever force had compromised the original Omnitrix, whatever waited beyond the dimensional bridge, whatever Adia and her mysterious allies planned, Ben would meet them with unprecedented capabilities. The game had changed, the stakes raised. The countdown continued its inexorable progress, each passing second bringing them closer to the moment when all these forces would converge, and the ultimate Omnitrix would face its true test. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Dimensional Fractures. The ultimate Omnitrix pulsed with emerald light as Ben rotated his forearm, studying its sleek contours. Enter the training room's specialized illumination. Unlike its predecessor's utilitarian bulk, this new creation possessed an almost organic quality, technology and crystalline components flowing together in harmonious symmetry. After 12 hours of intensive testing, the device continued to exceed expectations, adapting to his neural patterns with increasingly intuitive precision. Ready for Sequence 17, Alina's voice came through the observation room speakers, professional but edged with the fatigue of continuous monitoring. Let's make it interesting, Ben replied, rolling his shoulders to release accumulated tension. Random selection, no warning. Elena hesitated. That introduces unnecessary variables. We should maintain controlled progression through in the field. I won't have the luxury of controlled conditions, Ben countered. Better to test adaptation capabilities now, in a secure environment. A soft sigh transmitted through the speakers. Always pushing boundaries, Tennyson. Very well. Initiating random transformation sequence in 3, 2, 1. The ultimate Omnitrix activated without Ben's direct command, emerald energy engulfing him as it executed Alina's remote instruction. The transformation rippled through his molecular structure with exhilarating precision. Not the jarring reconfiguration of the original device, but a flowing metamorphosis that felt almost natural. Emerald light coalesced into Jetray's aerodynamic form, the amphibian's streamlined body perfectly adapted for atmospheric and space flight. Ben immediately launched upward, testing the enhanced maneuverability as he navigated the training room's obstacle course. Neural response time improved by 0.42 seconds over previous tests, Elena reported, monitoring biometric feedback. Energy efficiency up 18% from baseline. Ben executed a complex series of aerial maneuvers, pushing the transformation's capabilities beyond his typical limits. The ultimate Omnitrix didn't just recreate Jetray's standard form, it optimized it, refining aerodynamics and enhancing neural connections between Ben's consciousness and the alien physiology. Time for Phase 2, he called out, mentally activating the hybrid transformation protocol they'd been refining. Emerald energy flared again, but instead of reverting to human form or shifting to another singular alien, Jetray's body began integrating elements of Big Chill, the Necrophrygian spectral attributes merging with amphibian biology in a controlled synthesis that would have been impossible with the original Omnitrix. The hybrid that emerged retained Jetray's speed and maneuverability while incorporating Big Chill's intangibility and ice powers, sleek and aerodynamic but with ghostly moth-like wings that phased between solid and spectral states. Ben executed a high-speed dive, passing through solid obstacles while simultaneously firing neuroshock blasts imbued with cryogenic energy. Phenomenal, Elena murmured, temporarily forgetting professional detachment. Complete genetic stability maintained throughout hybridization. No energy fluctuations or quantum bleed. Ben completed the testing sequence by phasing through the floor, then reappearing by flying upward through solid matter, a tactical maneuver combining both species' capabilities in ways neither could achieve independently. With a thought, he reverted to human form, the transformation dissolving into emerald light that seemed to be absorbed back into the ultimate Omnitrix rather than dissipating. Elena emerged from the observation room, tablet in hand displaying complex biometric data. Her usual plumber uniform had been replaced by practical research attire, form-fitting black bodysuit with specialized pockets containing tools and monitoring devices. Despite 24 hours without sleep, her movements remained precise, dark hair immaculately secured in a functional braid that emphasized her striking features. The GY reclamation system is functioning at 94% efficiency, she noted, reviewing the readings. Previous transformations required a complete energy expenditure during reversion. The ultimate Omnitrix YCLES approximately 2/3 of that energy back into its power core. Which explains why it feels less draining, Ben observed, rolling his shoulders again. The original Omnitrix always left a momentary fatigue after transformation. This feels seamless. Elena nodded, making additional notes. The nanite interface creates more efficient neural pathways. Instead of forcing your consciousness to adapt to alien physiology, it creates a customized integration uniquely calibrated to your specific thought patterns. A genuine synthesis rather than a temporary override, Ben summarized, studying the device with growing appreciation. It's learning from each transformation. Precisely. Elena looked up from her tablet, professional demeanor softening slightly. You should rest, Ben. You've been pushing yourself through continuous testing since we completed the prototype. Ben checked the time display projected above the training room entrance. 18 hours remained on the mysterious countdown, while long-range sensors continued tracking Adia's approaching vessel, now just 7 hours from Earth orbit. Rest seemed like an unaffordable luxury. I'm fine, he dismissed, though. The shadows under his eyes belied the claim. What about those interrogation results? Any intelligence from our unwelcome visitors? Minimal, Elena replied, frustration evident in the tight line of her mouth. They appear to be mercenaries rather than pirates, hired muscle with limited knowledge of their employer's objectives. Their orders were simply to secure the prototype and anyone with knowledge of its creation. And they still won't identify who hired them. Elena's expression darkened. They can't. Their memories were modified, sophisticated neural blocks preventing recall of specific information. Magister Patelade believes the blocks were installed without their knowledge or consent. That disturbing detail added another layer to the already complex situation. So someone, with access to advanced memory manipulation technology hired them as disposable assets. Convenient. Very, Elena agreed grimly. The technology required exceeds even current plumber capabilities. We're dealing with someone who has access to restricted resources across multiple technological domains. Ben activated the ultimate Omnitrix's holographic interface, reviewing the catalog of Avela BLE transformations and hybrid combinations they'd tested thus far. What about Adia's ship? Any change in approach vector? Maintaining course for Earth orbit. Magistratus Tennyson has deployed defensive assets but is attempting diplomatic communication before taking hostile action. The vessel's size and configuration suggest it's a diplomatic flagship rather than a dedicated warship. With Adia, that distinction is meaningless. Ben commented dryly. A shopping shuttle becomes a battlecruiser if she decides to weaponize it. Elena's lips quirked in brief amusement before her expression turned serious again. There's something else you should know. Kai's sensors have detected unusual energy fluctuations throughout Bellwood, localized disturbances that match the dimensional signature we observed during your hybrid data capture. Ben's attention sharpened immediately. Dimensional leakage. I thought we contained that during the test. We did. These are new occurrences, apparently unrelated to our activities. Elena manipulated her tablet, displaying a map of Bellwood with multiple points highlighted in pulsing red. 7 locations showing identical energy signatures, all manifesting within the past 4 hours. Kai is investigating the primary site now. The implications were troubling. If dimensional disturbances were occurring independently of their experiments, it suggested the countdown might relate to some larger cosmic event, with Earth at its epicenter. We should join her, Ben decided. Whatever's happening, it might provide insights into what awaits at Zero. Elena nodded agreement, already moving toward the exit. I've prepared a mobile monitoring kit for the ultimate Omnitrix. We should continue performance analysis under field conditions. Always the scientist, Ben commented, following her toward the equipment bay. Even during potential dimensional catastrophes. Especially during potential dimensional catastrophes, Elena corrected without turning. Data collection becomes most crucial precisely when everything is falling apart. Downtown Bellwood had largely recovered from the crystalline entity's rampage 2 days earlier. Efficient plumber cleanup protocols, combined with the city's well-practiced disaster response systems, had restored most areas to normal function. Only the occasional repair crew or reinforced barricade indicated recent devastation. Ben guided his vehicle, a sleek, midnight blue coupe with subtle technological enhancements, through midday traffic toward the coordinates Kai had transmitted. Elena occupied the passenger seat, monitoring real-time data streams from multiple sources with practiced efficiency. Energy fluctuations increasing at all 7 sites, she reported, concern evident in her voice. Particularly the location Kai is investigating. Dimensional stability readings are concerning. Define concerning, Ben prompted, accelerating through an intersection as the traffic signal changed. On a scale from minor anomaly to imminent catastrophic breach, somewhere in the alarming middle ground. Elena's fingers danced across her tablet's interface. The barriers between dimensions are thinning at these locations, creating what Kai described as potential fracture points. Like cracks in a dam, Ben surmised, making a sharp turn into a less congested side street. Small enough now, but potentially catastrophic if they expand. An apt analogy. The question is what's creating the pressure behind those cracks. They arrived at their destination, a small urban park nestled between commercial buildings. Cordoned off by plumber security measures disguised as routine maintenance. Civilians strolled nearby, oblivious to the invisible danger contained within the restricted area. Kai Green stood at the park's center, surrounded by sophisticated monitoring equipment arranged in a precise geometric pattern. She had exchanged her previous practical attire for specie, a leased field gear, an advanced hazard suit modified with custom xenoarchaeological tools and sensors. Her long black hair was secured beneath a transparent protective hood that displayed continuous environmental readings. She looked up as Ben and Elena approached, her focused expression relaxing slightly. Perfect timing. It's becoming active again. Ben followed her gesture toward what appeared to be empty air. I don't see anything. Quote, that's the point, Kai replied, adjusting settings on her primary scanner. It exists partially outside our perceptual dimension. Here, she handed them specialized visors from her equipment case. Ben donned his immediately, Elena following suit after a momentary inspection of the technology. The world shifted through the enhanced visualization, colors acting on subtle distortion as hidden energy patterns became visible. In the space Kai had indicated, a vertical fracture hung suspended, a jagged tear in reality approximately 2 meters tall and mere centimeters wide. It pulsed with colors that defied conventional description, simultaneously present and absent, like an optical illusion that remained elusive even when directly observed. That's disconcerting, Ben commented, circling the anomaly with careful steps. It appeared approximately 3 hours ago, Kai explained, professional demeanor firmly in place despite the extraordinary phenomenon. Initially microscopic, but expanding at a measurable rate. The dimensional variance suggests a connection to a parallel reality rather than the void between dimensions. Elena approached with her scanner, capturing additional readings. Energy signature matches what we observed during the hybrid transformation test. Same quantum frequency, same dimensional resonance pattern. But we're nowhere near the lab, Ben pointed out, and the ultimate Omnitrix has been stable since completion. Why would similar fractures suddenly appear across Bellwood? That's the concerning question, Kai replied, manipulating her equipment to display comparative readings. These aren't random occurrences. They're forming at precisely calculated intervals, a perfect heptagonal pattern with Bellwood at its center. She gestured to her mapping display, which showed all 7 anomalies arranged in geometric precision. This isn't natural dimensional erosion. It's deliberate. Engineered with mathematical precision. Engineered by what? Ben asked, studying the pattern with growing concern. Or whom? Elena added quietly. As if responding to their discussion, the fracture pulsed with increased intensity. Its dimensions expanding slightly as energy patterns shifted within its mysterious depths. The monitoring equipment registered the change with a chorus of alert tones. Containment field holding, Kai reported. Adjusting parameters with quick, practiced movements. But energy levels are rising at an accelerated rate. Ben activated the ultimate Omnitrix, its holographic interface materializing above his forearm. Any recommendations for which form might be most effective against dimensional anomalies? Observation only, Kai replied firmly. Direct interaction could destabilize the fracture further. These aren't just tears in space, they're wounds in the fabric of reality itself. Poetic, Elena commented, though her expression remained serious. And unfortunately accurate. Conventional energy-based transformations could potentially react unpredictably with the dimensional flux. Ben reluctantly deactivated the interface, though he kept the ultimate Omnitrix ready for immediate use. So we just watch it grow. We analyze, document, and understand, Kai corrected. Starting with this, she adjusted her primary scanner, focusing its sensors directly into the fracture's core. The device hummed with increasing intensity, drawing subtle patterns of light from within the dimensional tear, translating imperceptible energy fluctuations into visible data. The whole graphic display materialized above the scanner, showing complex waveforms and mathematical sequences that shifted in hypnotic patterns. Kai studied these with intense concentration, her expression gradually shifting from professional curiosity to growing concern. That's unexpected, she murmured, manipulating the display for enhanced analysis. What are we looking at? Ben asked, the mathematical sequences meaningless to his untrained eye. Information, Kai replied, still focused on the display. These aren't random energy fluctuations. They're structured, organized in sequences that suggest deliberate communication. Elena moved closer, her expertise in nanite programming providing insight into pattern recognition. She's right. These sequences follow linguistic algorithms, mathematical representations of language. Something's communicating through the fracture. Ben clarified, the implication sending a chill down his spine. Not just communicating, Kai corrected, enlarging a specific section of the display. Broadcasting. These patterns are being transmitted simultaneously through all 7 fractures, creating a resonance field that encompasses Bellwood. Broadcasting what? Ben pressed, tension building in his muscles. Experience had taught him that unknown entities broadcasting unknown signals rarely preceded positive outcomes. Kai manipulated the data, applying translation algorithms developed during her xenoarchaeological research. The patterns rearranged, mathematical sequences resolving into partial linguistic structures, fragmented but increasingly comprehensible. It's incomplete, she admitted, frustration edging her voice. But the structural components I can decipher suggest coordinates. Dimensional positioning data, a targeting system, Elena realized. Her expression darkening. The fractures are creating a navigational network, like beacons or guideposts. For whatever's waiting on the other side, Ben concluded, the pieces aligning with disturbing clarity. The countdown, the dimensional fractures, the hybrid transformation, they're all connected. Someone or something is creating a pathway between dimensions. Before either woman could respond, the fracture pulsed violently, its edges expanding with sudden force that overwhelmed Kai's containment field. The monitoring equipment shrieked warnings as reality itself seemed to warp around the expanding tier. Containment failure, Kai reported, already implementing emergency protocols. The fracture is destabilizing. Ben didn't hesitate, activating the ultimate Omnitrix with practiced motion. Time for field testing after all. Going with chromastone, his crystalline structure should absorb energy without feeding the dimensional disruption. Emerald light engulfed IM as the transformation executed with fluid precision. When it dissipated, chromastone stood ready, but like previous transformations through the ultimate Omnitrix, this version appeared enhanced, the crystalline structure more refined and energy pathways more efficiently aligned. Dimensional flux increasing exponentially, Elena reported, scanning both the fracture and Ben's transformed state. The anomaly is reaching critical instability. The fracture suddenly tore wider, creating an aperture approximately 1 meter across. From within its impossible depths emerged a sinuous appendage, neither solid nor gaseous, but something between states of matter. It probed the air around the opening, sensory organs of indeterminate function pulsing along its length. "That's new," Ben commented, Chromastone's resonant voice maintaining remarkable calm despite the unprecedented situation. He positioned himself between the emerging entity and his companions, crystalline structure charging with absorbed energy. "Fascinating," Kai breathed, scientific curiosity momentarily overriding caution as she adjusted her sensors. "A transface entity, existing simultaneously in multiple dimensional states. Less admiration, more caution please," Elena suggested dryly, drawing her plumber issue sidearm while continuing to monitor energy readings. The appendage suddenly withdrew, disappearing back into the fracture's depths. For a brief moment, the dimensional tear pulsed with decreased intensity, as if temporarily stabilizing. "Is it retreating?" Ben asked, maintaining defensive posture. Hi's question was answered as the fracture violently expanded, dimensional energies tearing outward in chaotic patterns. Through the widened breach emerged a creature defying conventional description, a shifting amalgamation of matter and energy that continuously reconfigured itself, never settling into fixed form. Multiple appendages extended from its amorphous central mass, while sensory structures pulsed with otherworldly awareness. "Definitely not retreating," Ben confirmed, immediately channeling absorbed energy into a focused beam directed at the entity. The energy struck with pinpoint accuracy. But instead of damaging the creature, it simply passed through, briefly illuminating its internal structure before being absorbed completely. The entity showed no sign of injury or discomfort. Such concepts even applied to its alien physiology. "Conventional energy attacks ineffective," Ben reported, already reassessing tactical options. Switching to containment strategy, he mentally commanded the ultimate Omnitrix to execute a hybrid transformation, combining Chromastone's energy manipulation with Gravitax's gravitational control. Emerald light flared as the device responded with precision. The hybrid form materializing with seamless integration, crystalline structures orbited by gravitational forces that bent light and space around them. "Incredible," Kai murmured, momenta. Riley distracted from the immediate threat by the unprecedented transformation. "Containment field activating," Ben announced, directing gravitational forces to encapsulate the dimensional entity. The space around the creature distorted as intensified gravity created a localized field, preventing further advance while avoiding direct energy confrontation. The entity pulsed with increasing intensity, its amorphous form rippling as it tested the gravitational barrier. Multiple appendages probed the field's boundaries, sensory organs focusing on Ben with unsettling attention. "It's analyzing your containment strategy," Elena warned, monitoring the creature's energy patterns. Adaptive response imminent. As if confirming her assessment, the entity suddenly shifted its dimensional phase, artially slipping between realities to bypass the gravitational containment. One sinuous appendage extended with impossible speed, striking toward Ben with precise targeting. Ben reacted instantly, shifting the hybrid form's phase to match the entity's dimensional state, a capability neither original alien possessed independently but achievable through their synthesized powers. The counterattack intercepted the appendage, crystalline energy discharging at the exact dimensional frequency to disrupt its cohesion. The entity recoiled, emitting modulated energy pulses that translated through Kai's equipment as discordant mathematical sequences. "It's communicating again," she reported, analyzing the patterns. "But not broadcasting this time. These are directed signals. It's calling for something. That doesn't sound promising," Ben commented, maintaining the containment field while preparing secondary defenses. The dimensional fracture pulsed with renewed intensity, its edges expanding further as energy patterns shifted within its depths. The entity retreated partially into the breach, its appendages maintaining position in their reality while its central mass seemed to communicate with something beyond perception. "Energy readings shifting," Elena reported urgently. "The fracture it's changing frequency, aligning with the other 6 anomalies across Bellwood. They're synchronizing." Kai's monitoring equipment confirmed this assessment, displaying real-time data from all 7 sites. "She's right. The fractures are creating a harmonic resonance pattern, amplifying others' dimensional disruption capability. Which means, Ben prompted, dividing attention between immediate containment and broader tactical considerations. Trouble, Elena summarized succinctly. If all 7 fractures fully synchronize and expand simultaneously, we get something much bigger than 7 individual breaches, Kai finished. Potentially a full-scale dimensional gateway. The entity suddenly withdrew completely into the fracture, disappearing from perception even through their specialized visors. The tear remained, pulsing with steady rhythm that matched the synchron. IZED pattern displayed on Kai's monitoring equipment. It's retreated, Ben observed cautiously, maintaining the hybrid form's defensive posture. But the fracture remains active. Not retreated, Kai corrected grimly. Repositioning. These readings suggest it's moving between fracture points, using the dimensional network to navigate around Bellwood. Confirming similar entity signatures at locations 3 and 5, Elena added. Reviewing incoming plumber reports on her tablet. It's appearing briefly at each site before moving to the next. Scouting, Ben realized. It's mapping our reality from multiple vantage points, while strengthening the dimensional fractures in the process, Kai noted with professional concern. Each transition increases the tier's stability and expansion rate. It's not just exploring, it's preparing. For what? Elena asked the critical question. Before anyone could offer theories, all 7 fracture points simultaneously pulsed with increased intensity. Kai's monitoring equipment registered massive energy spikes across the network, dimensional frequencies shifting into perfect harmonic alignment. Something's coming through, she warned, adjusting containment parameters with urgent precision. Something bigger. Ben positioned himself before the fracture, hybrid form radiating combined gravitational and energy manipulation capabilities. Whatever it is, we'll contain it until we understand its intentions. Its intentions seem fairly clear, Elena commented dryly, readying additional countermeasures. Interdimensional invasion ascent typically suggest peaceful first contact. The fracture before them expanded suddenly, energy patterns coalescing into a defined aperture. Through this dimensional doorway emerged a figure that, unlike the amorphous scout entity, possessed humanoid structure, though its composition remained partially phased between dimensional states. Standing approximately 2 meters tall, the entity's form shifted continuously between solid matter and energy patterns that defied conventional physics. Its core structure maintained humanoid proportions with elongated limbs and a featureless head that nevertheless conveyed focused awareness. Energy patterns rippled across its surface in complex sequences, creating an effect similar to circuitry or writing embedded within its very substance. Fascinating, Kai breathed, scientific curiosity momentarily overriding caution. A fully sentient transface being, existing simultaneously across multiple dimensional planes. And apparently interested in us, Ben added, noting how the entity's attention focused specifically on their group rather than the broader environment. The entity extended what approximated an arm, energy patterns intensifying along the appendage as it pointed directly at Ben, or more precisely, at the ultimate Omnitrix. Mathematical sequences rippled across its form, translating through Kai's equipment as structured communication. It's attempting to establish contact, Kai reported, analyzing the patterns. Mathematically based communication using dimensional resonance as a carrier medium. Can you translate? Ben asked, maintaining defensive posture while avoiding overtly hostile actions. Kai manipulated her equipment, applying xenolinguistic algorithms to the mathematical patterns. Partially, it's asking, no, demanding, something about a bridge, or gateway. The conceptual framework doesn't translate cleanly. The entity's patterns intensified, communication becoming more urgent. It took a step forward. Dimensional distortion rippling outward from each movement like concentric waves in reality itself. Whatever it's saying, it's getting insistent, Ben observed, gravitational containment field strength. GT Henning in response to the potential threat. Elena studied her readings with increasing concern. The ultimate Omnitrix is reacting to its presence. The quantum buffer is registering harmonic resonance, NCE with the entity's dimensional frequency. Is that dangerous? Ben asked sharply, suddenly conscious of the device's subtle warming against his skin. Unknown, Elena admitted, but the correlate ion suggests a connection between the ultimate Omnitrix and whatever this entity represents. The dimensional being suddenly extended both appendages, energy patterns converging into focused beams directed at Ben. Before he could react, the beams struck, not as weapons, but as probes, scanning the ultimate Omnitrix with precise intensity. Ben felt the device respond, emerald energy pulsing along its surface as internal systems engaged autonomously. "It's communicating with the Omnitrix directly," he reported, watching as holographic interfaces materialized without his command. "Impossible," Elena stated, though her monitoring equipment confirmed the interaction. "The encryption protocols should prevent any external access. Apparently dimensional beings don't respect conventional cybersecurity," Ben replied. "Hybrid form maintaining stability despite the unexpected interface." The entity's communication patterns intensified, mathematical sequences resolving into more coherent struct. Yours as it established deeper connection with the ultimate Omnitrix. Through Kai's translation algorithms, fragmented concepts emerged. Bridge. Incomplete. Require. Catalyst. "It's talking about the dimensional bridge," Kai interpreted, adjusting parameters to enhance translation. "The same one you glimpsed during the hybrid transformation test. The key. Modified. And scheduled evolution. It knows about the ultimate Omnitrix," Elena realized with alarm. "It's aware we've replaced the original device." The entity's form pulsed with what might have been frustration, energy patterns becoming more erratic. It took another step forward, dimensional distortion intensifying around it. Designation. Tennyson. "You have interfered, accelerated, unplanned." "It knows me," Ben stated, unsurprised yet concerned. Entities knowing his identity usually preceded complicated situations. "And apparently we've disrupted whatever schedule it was maintaining." The countdown, Elena connected immediately. "We've changed something by creating the ultimate Omnitrix ahead of whatever timetable was planned." The entity suddenly withdrew its scanning beams, energy pattern. NS reconfiguring into what appeared to be a more aggressive stance. Its communication shifted from inquiry to declaration. Designation. Riftstalker. "Will reclaim the key." Without warning, it launched forward. Dimensional phase shifting to bypass Ben's containment field. Elena fired her weapon instantly, energy bolts passing harmlessly through the being's phased form. Kai activated emergency containment protocols, specialized barriers forming around the dimensional tear to prevent further incursion. Ben reacted with practiced combat instinct, the hybrid form shifting to counter the entity's dimensional phasing. Crystalline structures charged with gravitational energy met the Riftstalker's advance, creating a localized disruption field that momentarily stabilized its phase state into something tangible. "Got you," Ben declared, immediately increasing gravitational pressure around the partially solidified entity. The Riftstalker pulsed with intense energy, its form distorting as it fought against the containment. Mathematical patterns cascaded across its surface, no longer attempting communication but instead executing what appeared to be internal reconfiguration. "It's adapting," Kai warned, monitoring the energy signatures, shifting its dimensional resonance to counter your containment strategy. "Then I'll adapt faster," Ben responded, mentally commanding the ultimate Omnitrix to incorporate a third alien component into the hybrid transformation, adding feedback's energy absorption capabilities to the existing combination. The device executed the unprecedented command, emerald light flaring as the transformation evolved beyond previous parameters. The triple hybrid that emerged combined crystalline structure, gravitational control, and energy conduction into a unified form of extraordinary complexity. "That's new," Elena commented, scientific fascination momentarily outweighing tactical concerns as she monitored the unprecedented transformation. Ben directed the enhanced capabilities against the Riftstalker, conductive tendrils extending to intercept the entity's energy emissions while gravitational forces maintained spatial containment. Crystalline structure provided stability to this complex interaction, preventing power feedback loops that might have overwhelmed a simpler form. "Dimensional energy contained and redirected," Ben reported. "The hybrid transformation functioning beyond theoretical projections, creating a closed system it can't escape." The Riftstalker pulsed with what might have been surprise, its adaptive configuration temporarily disrupted by the unexpected counteraction. For several tense moments, the standoff continued, advanced alien technology versus interdimensional entity, neither gaining decisive advantage. Then, with startling abruptness, the Riftstalker shifted tactics. Instead of fighting the containment directly, it extended tendrils of dimensional energy toward the fracture itself, acting to the tear in reality with precise purpose. It's interfacing with the dimensional network, Kai warned, monitoring equipment registering massive energy transfers. All 7 fractures are responding. Throughout Bellwood, the synchronized dimensional tears pulsed with simultaneous intensity. Energy patterns converged on the park location, channeling through the Riftstalker in cascading sequence. What's it doing? Ben demanded, maintaining containment despite increasing difficulty as the entity's power swelled with external reinforcement. It's drawing power from the entire network, Elena explained, monitoring readings with growing alarm, using all 7 fractures to amplify its dimensional manipulation capabilities. The Riftstalker's form expanded, energy patterns reconfiguring into increasingly complex structures as it absorbed power from the dimensional network. Its communication resumed, mathematical sequences now broadcasting with overwhelming force. The convergence cannot be prevented, only delayed. With a final energy pulse that overwhelmed even Ben's enhanced containment, the Riftstalker tore free, immediately phasing beyond conventional perceptual dimensions. The sudden release of contained power created a shockwave of dimensional energy that rippled outward, temporarily distorting reality within a 10-meter radius. When stability returned, the entity had vanished, though the dimensional fracture remained, pulsing with steady rhythm that matched the broader network. Ben reverted to human form with a thought, the ultimate Omnitrix reclaiming the transformation energy with remarkable efficiency. Did it retreat or relocate? He asked, already scanning the surrounding area for potential reappearance. Neither, Kai replied grimly, reviewing sensor data. It's still here, just shifted beyond our perceptual dimensions. These readings suggest it's observing us from just outside conventional reality. Lovely, Elena commented with professional dryness. An interdimensional stalker with a specific interest in the ultimate Omnitrix. It called itself the Riftstalker, Ben noted, examining the device on his forearm. And referred to this as the key to some kind of convergence. Whatever that means. The implications are concerning, Kai stated, securing her monitoring equipment with practiced efficiency. These fractures aren't random dimensional erosion, they're engineered access points for entities from another reality. And they recognize the Omnitrix technology as instrumental to their plans, which explains the nanite infiltration of the original device. Elena connected, pieces aligning with disturbing clarity. It wasn't meant to destroy the Omnitrix but to modify it for specific dimensional interface capabilities. And by creating the ultimate Omnitrix instead, we disrupted whatever schedule they were maintaining, Ben concluded. The countdown is still running, but we've changed the game by introducing an unknown variable. A variable the Riftstalker seems determined to assess and potentially reclaim, Kai added, completing the analysis. Before further discussion could develop, Elena's communicator signaled with plumber priority codes. Lieutenant Validus, she answered crisply. Elena, we have a situation at headquarters, came Rook's distinctive formal cadence. A diplomatic vessel has ENTERED Earth orbit claiming jurisdictional authority over dimensional incursions. The representative is insistent about meeting with Ben immediately. Tetraman design, Kai noted, glancing at vessel specifications transmitted alongside the communication. Military diplomatic configuration. Ben's expression shifted to resigned understanding. Let me guess, Warlord Gar's flagship. Not exactly, Rook replied, a hint of uncharacteristic hesitation in his voice. The vessel is registered to Princess Luma Redwind, who has apparently been promoted to Supreme War Strategist of the Tetraman Planetary Defense Force. Luma, Ben repeated, memories of their complicated history surfacing. The Tetraman princess had once been his unwitting fiancée through cultural misunderstanding, leading to a series of encounters ranging from attempts on his life to reluctant battlefield alliances. This day just keeps getting better. She cites similar dimensional anomalies affecting Tetraman space, Rook continued, and claims prior information suggesting Earth is the focal point for interdimensional incursion. The implications were concerning. If dimensional fractures were appearing beyond Earth, the situation had broader cosmic implications than initially assessed. Tell her I'll return to headquarters immediately, Ben decided. And Rook, maintain high security protocols. Bet. Adia's suspicious departure and this dimensional entity, we can't afford to take diplomatic claims at face value. Understood, Rook confirmed before ending the transmission. Ben turned to his companions. Decision made. We need to expand our understanding of these dimensional fractures and their connection to the ultimate Omnitrix. Kai, continue monitoring the network for pattern changes or additional incursions. Elena, return to the lab and analyze the data from my encounter with the Riftstalker, particularly the triple hybrid transformation capabilities. And you'll handle Luma? Elena inquired, one eyebrow raised slightly. Someone has to, Ben replied with resignation. If Tetraman Space is experiencing similar phenomena, her information could be valuable, assuming she's still harboring resentment over our broken engagement. Your dating history continues to create diplomatic complications, Elena observed with dry humor. Perhaps consider less interstellar relationship drama in the future. Wasn't exactly in my life plans, Ben defended, though a slight smile acknowledged the absurdity of his situation. Kai, your equipment can be transported. She nodded, already configuring her monitoring systems for mobility. I'll establish a perimeter around this fracture with automated sensors, then rotate through the other sites to establish comparative baselines. Perfect. Let's move quickly. The countdown isn't waiting for our convenience. As they prepared to implement their respective assignments, Ben activated the ultimate Omnitrix's communication function, establishing a secure channel to Plumber headquarters. The device responded with intuitive precision, holographic interface materializing with enhanced clarity compared to standard Plumber technology. Magistratus Tennyson, Ben greeted when his grandfather's image appeared. We have confirmation of interdimensional entities utilizing the fractures across Bellwood. One made direct contact, identifying itself as the Riftstalker, and expressing specific interest in the Omnitrix. Max's expression remained professionally composed despite the alarming information. Hostile, unclear, Ben admitted. Initial contact appeared investigative rather than overtly aggressive, though it became confrontational when we prevented full materialization. It referred to some kind of convergence that we've apparently disrupted by creating the ultimate Omnitrix. And Luma Red Wind's arrival, potentially related. If Tetraman Space is experiencing similar dimensional phenomena, these fractures may extend beyond Earth. Max nodded. Decision made. I'll implement citywide monitoring for additional dimensional signatures and coordinate with off-world allies to determine the scope of these incursions. You handle the Tetraman diplomatic situation. Your history with Luma might facilitate more candid information exchange. For better or worse, Ben agreed wryly. I'm en route to headquarters now. As the communication ended, Ben turned to find Elena and Kai exchanging information with efficient professionalism, already coordinating their respective research approaches. Despite the gravity of their situation, he felt a moment of genuine appreciation for their capabilities, Elena's brilliant technical mind and Kai's specialized dimensional expertise complementing each other perfectly. Stay in continuous contact, he instructed as they prepared to separate. If the Riftstalker reappears or the fractures show any significant change, I need immediate notification. Obviously, both women replied simultaneously, then exchanged surprised glances at the synchronicity. Ben suppressed a smile as he activated the ultimate Omnitrix, selecting XLR-8's form for rapid transit to headquarters. Try not to have all the scientific breakthroughs without me. Emerald light engulfed him as the transformation executed with fluid precision. The optimized Kinesolaren form that Emerald possessed enhanced aerodynamics and neural response capabilities compared to the original, another example of the ultimate Omnitrix's continuous refinement process. Be careful with Luma, Kai advised as he prepared to depart. Tetraman females don't easily relinquish claims, especially on potential mates. Voice of experience, Elena inquired with subtle emphasis. Kai's expression remained professionally neutral, though her eyes conveyed unspoken complexity. Merely anthropological observation of Tetraman cultural practices. I'll handle Luma diplomatically, Ben assured them, the Kinesolaren form's voice carrying characteristic vibratory qualities. We've reached a reasonable understanding over the years. Is that what you call it when someone tries to pulverize you across multiple star systems? Elena asked innocently. Relationship development, Ben replied with light sarcasm before accelerating away in a blur of motion, leaving the women to their respective tasks. As XLR-8's enhanced speed carried him through Bellwood toward Plumber headquarters, Ben's thoughts raced with equal velocity. The dimensional fractures, the Riftstalker's ominous warnings, Luma's unexpected arrival, Adia's suspicious departure, all converging as the countdown continued its inexorable progression. 16 hours remained until 0, and the ultimate Omnitrix pulsed against his transformed wrist with steady emerald light, the key to a dimensional convergence he had inadvertently disrupted but could not yet comprehend. Plumber Headquarters' diplomatic reception bay had been designated to accommodate visitors from across the galaxy, with adaptive environmental controls and configurable gravity settings for diverse physiological requirements. Currently, these sophisticated systems focused on creating optimal Tetraman conditions, elevated temperature, increased atmospheric density, and gravity settings approximately twice Earth standard. Ben entered in human form, having RTED from XLR8 upon reaching headquarters. The ultimate Omnitrix had executed each transformation with increasing efficiency, the neural interface adapting to his thought patterns with remarkable precision. Even the gravitational adjustment as he entered the reception bay triggered no discomfort, the device subtly enhancing his muscular and skeletal structure to compensate for the increased pressure. Luma Red Wind stood with her back to the entrance, forearms clasped behind her in a formal military posture as she studied tactical displays projected before her. The years since their last encounter had transformed the once impetuous Tetraman princess into a formidable military commander, her traditional battle armor replaced with the more sophisticated regalia of a supreme war strategist. Ceremonial weapons hung at her sides, while technological enhancements had been integrated into her armor with functional elegance. War Strategist Red Wind, Ben greeted formally, using her proper title rather than the familiar address that might have evoked complicated history. Luma turned, crimson eyes instantly assessing him with tactical precision that softened almost imperceptibly into recognition. Magister Tennyson, she acknowledged, her resonant voice maintaining professional detachment despite the slight quirk of her expression that suggested more complex emotions beneath. You look, well, as do you, Ben replied sincerely. The promotion to Supreme War Strategist suited her, leadership responsibility focusing her natural warrior instincts into strategic discipline. Congratulations on your advancement in the Tetraman military structure. Necessitated by evolving threats, she responded, dismissing the personal achievement with characteristic Tetraman pragmatism. Including the dimensional anomalies that have appeared throughout our system, anomalies that trace their origin to Earth. Direct as ever, Ben noted with internal amusement. We've only just begun investigating similar phenomena here. What can you tell me about the Tetraman experiences? Luma manipulated the tactical display with practiced efficiency, transforming the projection to show the Tetraman home system. Multiple points glowed with warning indicators, concentrated particularly around the warrior planet itself. Dimensional fractures began appearing throughout our territory approximately 72 Earth hours ago. She explained, highlighting specific locations. Initially dismissed as sensor malfunctions or natural stellar phenomena. When they began expanding and emitting structured energy patterns, our scientists recognized the implications. Structured patterns, Ben prompted, immediately connecting this to the mathematical communications they'd observed. Luma nodded, bringing forward specific data recordings. Mathematical sequences of extraordinary complexity, broadcasting continuously through the fractures. Our cryptographic division identified partial translation indicating coordinates and temporal synchronization data. A countdown, Ben confirmed, the parallel unmistakable. Precisely. Our calculations indicate culmination in approximately. She checked a device integrated into her armor. 15 hours, 42 minutes by Earth measurement. The alignment with their own countdown confirmed Ben's suspicion that these events were coordinated on a cosmic scale. Have you encountered entities emerging from these fractures? Specifically, one identifying itself as the Riftstalker. Luma's expression sharpened with immediate recognition. You've encountered it directly, less than an hour ago. It emerged from one of the Bellwood fractures, scanned the OMN. Ben caught himself, uncertain how much to reveal about the ultimate Omnitrix. Scanned me, then referenced something called the convergence, before retreating. The Tetraman's four hands clenched simultaneously, a gesture of controlled agitation. The entity penetrated our outermost defense perimeter 3 days ago, bypassing security measures that should have been impenetrable. It infiltrated our central military database, extracting information specifically related to Prevue's Tetraman encounters with Earth, particularly those involving you. This revelation added another concerning dimension to the situation. It's gathering intelligence across multiple worlds, focusing on connections to Earth. And apparently to me specifically. Which explains why Warlord Gar dispatched me rather than conventional diplomatic representatives, Luma confirmed. Our history, complicated as it is, provides potential insight into whatever the entity seeks. Ben appreciated her professional approach to their personal connection, treating it as tactical intelligence rather than emotional complication. Have your scientists determined the nature of these fractures? Their purpose beyond communication? Luma's expression darkened. Our analysis suggests they form an interdimensional network, a transportation system allowing entities to move between points across vast distances without traversing conventional space. More concerning, the fractures appear to be strengthening, creating stable pathways rather than temporary breaches. Preparation for larger-scale transit, Ben concluded, the assessment matching their own findings. Indeed, our predictive models suggest countdown culminates in complete dimensional synchronization, a convergence that would allow unrestricted passage between realities. The term triggered immediate recognition. The Riftstalker used that exact word, convergence, and referred to something called the key that had been modified ahead of schedule. Luma's crimson eyes narrowed thoughtfully. The key, referenced in relation to you personally. Ben hesitated, weighing security concerns against the value of shared intelligence. Luma had provided information without reservation. Reciprocal transparency seemed appropriate, particularly given the cosmic scale of the threat. Not me exactly. The Omnitrix, he clarified, deciding partial disclosure served their mutual interests. Specifically, it referred to the device as instrumental to the convergence process. That aligns with our scientific assessment, Luma confirmed, manipulating the tactical display to show comparative energy readings. The dimensional fractures emit signature patterns containing traces identifiable as Omnitrix energy, specifically, the transformation field generated during species conversion. This connection confirmed Ben's growing suspicion, and that the original Omnitrix's compromise had been deliberately engineered to facilitate the dimensional convergence. The transformation field temporarily distorts dimensional boundaries during genetic reconfiguration, he explained. Understanding dawning. If modified correctly, it could theoretically expand that distortion to create stable interdimensional passages, Luma completed the thought. Her tactical mind immediately grasping the implications. The Riftstalker wasn't just studying the Omnitrix, it was attempting to weaponize its fundamental function as a dimensional gateway. Full picture began resolving with disturbing clarity. The nanite infiltration, the hybrid transformation malfunction, the energy discharge into space. All calculated steps toward repurposing the Omnitrix as an interdimensional portal generator. And we disrupted its plan by creating a replacement, Ben realized, the ultimate Omnitrix's weight on his forearm suddenly carrying new significance. Luma's attention shifted to his wrist, eyes narrowing with tactical assessment. That is not the Omnitrix I remember. Ben considered his options carefully before responding. Luma had shared strategic intelligence openly. Continued evasion would undermine potential alliance against a common threat. It's been upgraded, he admitted with deliberate understatement. When we discovered the original device had been compromised, we developed an alternative with enhanced capabilities and security protocols. The Tetraman studied him with unnerving intensity, all four eyes focused on his expression rather than the device itself. You created a new Omnitrix without Azimuth's involvement, she stated rather than asked. Impressive and characteristically reckless. Necessary, Ben corrected, though with a slight smile acknowledging her accurate assessment of his methods. The original device was becoming dangerous, compromised at a fundamental level by nanite infiltration specifically. Designed to facilitate this dimensional convergence. Luma nodded, accepting the explanation with pragmatic understanding. Which explains why the Riftstalker seemed particularly interested in you during our encounter. It detected the change in its carefully orchestrated plan. You've faced it directly? Ben asked, surprised by this revelation. Briefly, Luma confirmed, subconsciously touching a regenerated section of armor that suggested recent combat damage. It penetrated our central command center, specifically targeting our Dimensional Research Division. When confronted, it displayed combat capabilities beyond conventional physics, phasing between dimensional states to avoid standard attacks while delivering counterstrikes from multiple vectors simultaneously. We experienced similar tactics, Ben noted. Conventional energy weapons proved ineffective, though I managed temporary containment using specialized transformation abilities. Luma's expression showed professional interest. Which form proved effective against its phasing capabilities? A hybrid transformation, Ben replied, deciding continued transparency served their alliance. The ultimate Omnitrix allows combination of multiple alien species into synthesized forms with capabilities exceeding their individual components. The Tetraman's eyes widened slightly, the only indication of surprise from a warrior trained to mask reactions. That technology exceeds even theoretical Galvan research into transformation capabilities. You've created something unprecedented. Not alone, Ben clarified, giving credit where due. A team of specialists developed the device under crisis conditions. Its full capabilities are still being explored. Luma processed this information with tactical consideration. This development may explain why the countdown continues despite the disruption of the Riftstalker's original plan. It's adapting its strategy to incorporate your new device rather than abandoning the convergence entirely. Which means we've changed the game but not prevented it, Ben concluded grimly. The question remains, what exactly is this convergence, and what comes through when the countdown reaches zero? Our scientists have theories based on dimensional energy analysis, Luma offered, manipulating the tactical display to show theoretical models. The fracture network appears, designed to facilitate synchronized breaching of dimensional barriers across multiple points simultaneously. When perfectly aligned, the explanation was interrupted as the diplomatic chamber's alert system activated. Proximity warnings indicating an unauthorized approach. Security fields automatically engaged around the perimeter as plumber defensive protocols initiated. We have an intruder, Ben stated unnecessarily. Already activating the ultimate Omnitrix's interface. Stay behind the security field until. I require no protection, Tennyson, Luma interrupted with dignified offense. Drawing dual energy weapons from her armor with practiced efficiency. All four arms moved in perfect coordination as she assumed combat stance beside him rather than behind defensive barriers. Tetram and war strategists fight alongside allies, not from protected positions. Despite the tense situation, Ben felt unexpected appreciation for her warrior's code and straightforward approach. Just like old times, a brief smile flashed across Luma's fierce features. Preferably with less property damage than our previous collaborations. Before Ben could respond, the chamber's reinforced entrance buckled inward. Metal and energy fields warping as dimensional distortion rippled through the material. Reality itself seemed to fold, creating an aperture where solid matter had existed moments before. Through this impossible breach stepped the Riftstalker, its transface form more defined than during their previous encounter. The mathematical patterns flowing across its surface had evolved into more complex configurations, suggesting increased adaptation to their dimensional plane. Tennyson, it communicated, the mathematical sequences translating through the chamber's specialized systems. Tetraman alliance irrelevant. Surrender the key. Not happening, Ben replied firmly, emerald light already engulfing him as the ultimate Omnitrix executed his mental command. The transformate ion rippled through his molecular structure with fluid precision, resolving into Diamond Head's crystalline form, but with the same enhanced refinement evident in previous transformations. Luma immediately engaged from the opposite flank, energy weapons configured to oscillating frequencies designed to disrupt phased matter. The coordinated attack forced the Riftstalker to divide its attention bet. Ween 2 experienced combatants approaching from different vectors. Dimensional phase shifting detected, Ben observed, Diamond Head's crystalline senses perceiving energy patterns invisible to human perception. It's attempting to bypass conventional defensive measures. Adaptation in progress, Luma confirmed, adjusting her weapons to counter the shifting frequency. Standard containment in effective against its current configuration. Ben mentally commanded a hybrid transformation, combining Diamond Head's crystalline structure with Clockwork's temporal manipulation capabilities. Emerald energy flared as the ultimate Omnitrix executed the complex genetic integration, creating a form that radiated both physical and temporal power, living crystal infused with chronological energy that distorted time around it. Temporal containment field establishing, Ben announced, directing chronokinetic energy to encapsulate the Riftstalker's position. The space around the entity distorted as Ime itself slowed within the designated zone, forcing its dimensional phasing to proceed at fractional speed. Luma immediately capitalized on the temporal advantage, forearms working in perfect RDI Nation to deploy specialized containment technology around the slowed entity. Tetraman phase disruptors active, she reported with professional efficiency. Establishing resonance counter-harmonics to prevent dimensional shifting. The Riftstalker pulsed with visible effort against the combined containment measures, its mathematical communication patterns becoming increasingly complex as it attempted countermeasures. Within the temporal field, its movements proceeded with glacial slowness, each attempted phase shift countered by precise adjustments to the chronokinetic parameters. Containment holding, Ben confirmed. The hybrid form maintaining precise control over the temporal field. But it's adapting, attempting to synchronize with external dimensional frequencies to break the temporal isolation. Confirmed. Luma acknowledged, monitoring readings from her armor's integrated systems. It's broadcasting distress signals through subdimensional channels. Potential reinforcement imminent. The warning proved prophetic as reality rippled around them, additional dimensional distortions forming at cardinal points throughout the chamber. Through these secondary breaches emerged smaller entities similar to the scout Ben had encountered in the park, amorphous, transface beings that immediately moved to surround their contained leader. Tactical reassessment required, Loom. Stated with characteristic understatement, repositioning to address the new threats while maintaining focus on the primary containment. Ben mentally commanded another transformation adjustment, incorporating feedback's energy manipulation capabilities into the existing hybrid form. The ultimate Omnitrix executed the unprecedented triple combination with remarkable stability, creating a crystal in chronokinetic entity with conductive tendrils extending from its form, simultaneously maintaining temporal containment while engaging the surrounding entities. 3-species hybrid stable, he reported with surprise even as he directed energy tendrils toward the nearest scout entities. Adapting containment strategy for multiple targets. Luma observed the transformation with professional appreciation despite the tactical pressure. Your new device exceeds even theoretical limitations of transformation technology. Impressive evolution. Still in beta testing, Ben replied with characteristic humor despite the situation. Directing conductive tendrils to intercept dimensional energy emissions from the scout entities. Could use additional field assessment. The Riftstalker's mathematical patterns suddenly shifted. Communication broadcasting with increased intensity. The evolution, unexpected but irrelevant. The convergence approaches. Resistance mathematically futile. It's stalling, Luma realized. Tactical assessment cutting through the apparent confidence in the entity's communication. Creating distraction while something else proceeds. Ben expanded his perceptual awareness through the hybrid form's enhanced senses, detecting subtle energy fluctuations beyond the immediate confrontation. The dimensional fractures across Bellwood, they're intensifying, synchronizing at accelerated rate. Tactical diversion confirmed, Luma agreed, already activating communication systems integrated into her armor. Alerting Tetraman vessel to implement planetary containment protocols. The Riftstalker pulsed with what might have been satisfaction, mathematical patterns resolving into more coherent translation. The convergence cannot be prevented, only joined. Your evolution serves our purpose. Differently than calculated but effectively. It's saying the ultimate Omnitrix still serves their plan, Ben translated with growing concern. Just through different mechanisms than originally intended. Deception probable, Luma assessed immediately. Psychological warfare to create uncertainty during tactical engagement. Despite her pragmatic interpretation, Ben felt uncomfortable resonance with the entity's claim. The ultimate Omnitrix had been created specifically to counter the compromised device, yet the Riftstalker seemed unprepared by the substitution, almost as if the evolution had been anticipated or could be incorporated into its larger strategy. Before he could explore this concern further, the primary containment field fluctuated as the Riftstalker executed a coordinated effort with its scout entities. Dimensional energy converged from multiple vectors, creating harmonic resonance that threatened to overwhelm the temporal isolation. Containment destabilizing, Ben reported, directing additional chronokinetic energy to reinforce the field. It's combining power from all entities to establish dimensional harmony. Tetraman countermeasures engaged. Luma responded, activating additional functions in her specialized armor. The technology pulsed with distinctive energy signatures designed to disrupt interdimensional harmonics, temporarily destabilizing the entity's coordination. The momentary advantage allowed Ben to recalibrate the containment field, adjusting temporal parameters to counter the Riftstalker's adaptive measures. The triple hybrid form maintained remarkable stability despite channeling powers that would have overwhelmed even the original Omnitrix's most advanced transformations. Harmonics disrupted, he confirmed as the containment stabilized. But we're treating symptoms rather than the cause. As long as the dimensional fractures continue strengthening, these entities can continue drawing power from the network. Luma completed the thought, tactical mind already processing implications. We require simultaneous containment of all fracture points to isolate this incursion. The Riftstalker's communication patterns intensified, mathematical sequences becoming more urgent as it sensed their strategic realization. The network, beyond your comprehension, spans realities. Convergence inevitable. It fears coordinated response, Luma interpreted, recognizing the tactical vulnerability beneath the bravado. The fracture network requires continuous maintenance. Disruption at multiple points would compromise the entire system. Ben processed this insight with strategic consideration, maintaining containment while developing broader countermeasures. If we could destabilize all 7 fracture points simultaneously, we might interrupt whatever convergence process is building toward zero. Precisely, Luma confirmed. My vessel carries specialized dimensional stabilizers designed after our initial encounters with these entities. Modified deployment could potentially reverse the fractures' expansion. We need coordination with the research team monitoring the fractures. Ben decided, already establishing communication through the ultimate Omnitrix's enhanced systems. Kai, Elena, status update on the dimensional network. Elena's voice came through with remarkable clarity despite the electromagnetic interference generated by their containment efforts. Ben, the fractures are accelerating toward synchronization. Energy readings have increased exponentially within the last 15 minutes. We've got the Riftstalker contained at headquarters, Ben explained, but it's coordinating with the fracture network to build power for something it calls the convergence. We need simultaneous disruption of all 7 fracture points. The chronostabilizers might work. Kai's voice joined the communication, background sounds indicating he was in transit between monitoring sites. Reconfigured to inverse polarity, they could potentially destabilize the dimensional frequencies maintaining the tiers. Luma's vessel has similar technology, Ben informed them. If we coordinate deployment at all 7 points simultaneously. The strategic planning was interrupted as the Riftstalker suddenly executed an unexpected countermeasure. Rather than fighting the containment directly, it collapsed its physical form inward, dimensional mass compressing to quantum density before releasing a concentrated pulse of interdimensional energy. The resulting shockwave overwhelmed even the triple hybrid's containment capabilities, disrupting the temporal field and sending both Ben and Luma crashing into opposite walls of the chamber. The SC-out entities immediately converged on the Riftstalker, dimensional energies combining to create a protective matrix around their leader. Tactical repositioning required, Luma assessed calmly despite the setback. 4 arms already deploying secondary countermeasures as she regained combat stance. Ben adjusted the hybrid form's configuration, redirecting energy resources toward defensive capabilities as he re-established position. It's stronger than during our previous encounter, drawing power directly from the fracture network as it expands. The Riftstalker's mathematical patterns reconfigured, communication shifting from confrontation to declaration. Your resistance provides valuable adaptation data. The key evolves beyond parameters. This serves the greater convergence. Before either could respond, the entity and its scouts suddenly shifted dimensional phase completely, disappearing from conventional perception as they transitioned beyond the chamber's containment capabilities. Reality rippled where they had stood, dimensional energies dissipating as the incursion withdrew. They've retreated, Ben observed cautiously, maintaining the hybrid form's sensory capabilities at maximum sensitivity. But not departed. Tactical withdrawal to reassess, Luma confirmed, scanning for residual energy signatures with her armor's specialized systems. It achieved its Primary objective: assessment of your new transformation capabilities. Ben reverted to human form with a thought, the ultimate Omnitrix reclaiming the transformation energy with remarkable efficiency. It seems more interested in studying the ultimate Omnitrix than actually taking it. Almost like it's cataloging adaptations. Gathering intelligence for the primary convergence event, Luma suggested. Securing her weapons while maintaining alert posture. Your device represents an unexpected variable in their calculations, simultaneously disrupting the original plan while potentially offering new approaches. This assessment aligned uncomfortably well with Ben's growing concern. It specifically mentioned the key evolving beyond parameters but serving the greater convergence, regardless. Whatever they originally planned with the compromised Omnitrix, they seem to believe the ultimate Omnitrix still facilitates their objective somehow. Luma approached tactical mind processing implications with characteristic efficiency. The core transformation functionality remains consistent between devices despite your enhancements. If the dimensional manipulation capabilities were their primary interest, then the ultimate Omnitrix might actually provide superior functionality for their purposes. Ben completed the disturbing thought. We may have inadvertently created a more effective tool for whatever they're planning. The communication system integrated into the ultimate Omnitrix activated before Luma could respond, Alina's voice coming through with urgency. Ben, we have a significant development. The fracture network is reconfiguring, shifting geometric alignment while maintaining dimensional stability. It's like they're adapting to new parameters. The F-Stalker's tactical withdrawal wasn't retreat, Luma realized immediately. It's redirecting resources toward network reconfiguration. Confirmed, Kai's voice joined the communication. The energy Y patterns within the fractures have shifted to match frequencies I detected during your hybrid transformation tests. They're aligning with the ultimate Omnitrix's specific dimensional resonance. Implications sent a chill through Ben's core. They're adapting the convergence process to incorporate the ultimate Omnitrix rather than the original device. Instead of disrupting their plan, we've just forced them to evolve it. Which explains the Riftstalker's limited offensive engagement, Luma added, tactical assessment rapidly processing the new information. It wasn't attempting to your device, it was studying it to recalibrate the entire network. Countdown status, Ben asked, already moving toward the exit with Luma falling into step beside him. 14 hours, 17 minutes remaining, Elena reported. But the acceleration in fracture development suggests potential timeline compression. Whatever's coming at zero might arrive earlier than calculated if the net orc continues strengthening at current rates. We need to implement simultaneous disruption of all fracture points, Ben decided. Kai, coordinate with Elena to reconfigure your chronostabilizers for network disruption. Luma will provide additional technology from her vessel. Acknowledged. Both women responded simultaneously. I'll authorize immediate deployment of dimensional stabilizers, Luma confirmed. Already communicating instructions to her vessel in rapid Tetraman military code. Tactical insertion teams can reach all 7 fracture points within 20 standard minutes. N activated the ultimate Omnitrix's interface, reviewing transformation options with focused intensity. I'll coordinate from central position, ready to counter any direct intervention from the Riftstalker or additional entities. As they exited the diplomatic chamber and moved with urgent purpose toward the command center, Luma studied Ben with thoughtful assessment. Your leadership capabilities have evolved significantly since our previous encounters, Tennyson. The impetuous youth has become a formidable tactical commander. Experience has a way of forcing growth, Ben replied, though he appreciated the professional acknowledgement from someone whose warrior culture valued competence above all else. You've changed too, channeling your considerable combat skills toward strategic thinking rather than just battlefield dominance. Necessity, she stated simply, though a hint of satisfaction colored her tone. The challenges facing our worlds require more than individual combat prowess. Strategic vision preserves warriors for battles worth fighting. Wisdom beyond Warlord Gar's typical approach, Ben observed with slight smile. He must be adapting to changing times. Reluctantly, Luma admitted, rare humor briefly lightening her fierce expression. Though he still speaks of our cancelled engagement occasionally, sometimes with relief, sometimes with regret for lost alliance opportunities. And your perspective, Ben couldn't resist asking as they entered the main command complex. Luma considered the question with characteristic directness. I have come to appreciate that effective alliances need not involve matrimonial complications. Our current strategic cooperation serves both our worlds more effectively than cultural misunderstandings and frustrated expectations. Diplomatic way of saying you're glad you didn't have to marry me, Ben translated with good-natured understanding. I would have honored the commitment had it proceeded, Luma clarified with Tetraman straightforwardness. But our current relationship offers different advantages. Combat allies who understand each other's capabilities without romantic entanglements. Speaking of allies, Ben redirected as they approached the central command platform where Max coordinated Plumber response to the escalating dimensional crisis. We need to brief the Magistratus on our countermeasure strategy. Max looked up as they arrived, expression professionally composed despite the chaos evident on monitoring displays surrounding the command center. Ben, War Strategist Red Wind. I underst. And we had an uninvited visitor in the diplomatic sector. The Riftstalker, Ben confirmed. It's coordinating the dimensional fracture network across Bellwood, and apparently across Tetraman space as well. More concerning, it's adapting the network to align with the ultimate Omnitrix's specific energy signature rather than the original device. Suggesting our countermeasure has merely forced adaptation rather than prevention. Max concluded grimly. Assessment of threat level, critical and escalating. Luma replied with military precision. The convergence countdown continues with potential acceleration as network synchronization improves. My vessel's dimensional stabilizers are being deployed to all 7 fracture points for simultaneous disruption attempt. Coordinated with Dr. Green's chronostabilizers, Ben added. Combined technologies might destabilize the network temporarily, buying time to develop more permanent countermeasures. Max nodded approval, immediately grading the strategy into broader response protocols. I've implemented citywide alert status without public panic measures. Essential personnel have been notified of potential dimensional instability, and evacuation contingencies are in place for areas surrounding fracture points. What about Adia's vessel? Ben asked, noting its position still displayed on long-range sensors. Any communication since her abrupt departure? None, Max confirmed, suspicion evident in his tone. Her escort vessels maintain position in high orbit, but all communication attempts have been declined with diplomatic deflection protocols. Her timing remains tactically suspicious, Luma observed. Departure coinciding with the Riftstalker's initial appearance suggests potential coordination or at minimum prior knowledge. We can't rule out Incursine involvement, Ben agreed, though he remained uncertain of Adia's precise role in the unfolding crisis. Her evolution from impetuous princess to calculating empress had introduced layers of complexity to her motivations that defied simple categorization. But immediate priorities remain network disruption and containment of additional incursions. Max expanded the tactical display, showing real-time monitoring of all 7 fracture points. Dr. Green and Lieutenant Validus have established coordinated monitoring of the entire network. Deploy me. NT teams are en route to all locations with specialized equipment. Optimal positioning would place me at central fracture point, Ben assessed, studying the geometric pattern. Ready to respond to any location if the Riftstalker attempts direct intervention during our disruption attempt. I will coordinate from my vessel, Luma decided, tactical mind allocating resources with practiced efficiency. Providing orbital support and additional stabilizer deployment if initial attempts prove insufficient. As they finalized tactical arrangements, the ultimate Omnitrix pulsed with subtle notification, a private communication from Elena bypassing standard Plumber channels. Ben discreetly activated the secure connection, her voice coming through with controlled urgency. Ben, I've completed deeper analysis of the Riftstalker's communication patterns. The mathematical sequences contain embedded data beyond simple translation, what appears to be interdimensional coordinates and structural specifications. Specifications for what? He asked quietly, moving slightly away from the command platform for privacy. Based on correlation with known technological frameworks, I believe there are design parameters for a dimensional gateway. Specifically, a gateway requiring the ultimate Omnitrix as its activation catalyst. The implications landed with disturbing weight. They're not just tuning the device, they're incorporating its specific quantum signature into their convergence architecture. Precisely, Elena confirmed. The hybrid transformation capabilities seem particularly relevant to their calculations. The dimensional resonance created by your triple species transformation registered across all 7 fracture points simultaneously. Ben processed this with growing concern. So every time I use the ultimate Omnitrix, especially hybrid transformations, you potentially provide additional calibration data for their convergence process, Elena completed the troubling thought. I'm implementing buffer protocols to minimize dimensional bleed during transformations, but complete isolation may be impossible given the fundamental nature of the technology. Understood. Continue adaptation efforts but prioritize network disruption preparation. We'll address long-term countermeasures after stabilizing the immediate situation. As the communication ended, Ben joined Max and Luma at the command platform, strategic implications reshaping his approach to the crisis. The ultimate Omnitrix, created as solution to sabotage, might inadvertently serve the very purpose they sought to prevent, albeit through different mechanisms than originally intended. Deployment teams in final position, Max reported, monitoring coordinated approach to all 7 fracture points. Synchronized disruption on your command, Ben. Ben activated the ultimate Omnitrix's communication function, establishing direct connection with all teams simultaneously. This is Magister Tennyson. Confirm readiness status for dimensional disruption attempt. Acknowledgements came from all 7 locations, including Elena and Kai's voices from their respective positions. Luma added confirmation of orbital support readiness. Her vessel now positioned for optimal coverage of the entire network. Initiating disruption sequence in 10 seconds, Ben announced, watching as countdown timers synchronized across all monitoring displays. Maintain maximum containment protocols. We don't know how the Riftstalker might respond to direct interference with its network. As the countdown reached 0, specialized technologies activated simultaneously across Bellwood, Tetraman dimensional stabilizers and modified chronocrystals generating precisely calibrated energy fields designed to disrupt the fractures, mathematical harmony. The combined effect created visible distortion around each tear in reality, the impossible geometries of interdimensional space temporarily destabilized. Initial disruption successful, Elena reported from her position. Dimensional resonance decreasing by 42% across all fracture points. Network synchronization destabilizing, Kai added, monitoring the broader pattern. Geometric alignment fluctuating as dimensional harmonics lose coherence. For a moment, it appeared their coordinated strategy had succeeded, the fracture network visibly weakening as stabilizing technologies countered the interdimensional mathematics maintaining the tiers in reality. Energy readings decreased across all monitoring systems, the countdown to convergence momentarily stuttering in its progression. Then, with alarming suddenness, reality rippled around each fracture point simultaneously. The dimensional tiers pulsed with renewed intensity, mathematical patterns configuring with extraordinary complexity as adaptive countermeasures engaged. Energy signatures shifting, Elena warned, urgency breaking through her professional composure. The network is adapting, recalibrating to counter our specific disruption frequencies. Confirmed, Kai's voice added. The fractures are actually drawing energy from our stabilizers, converting the disruption attempts into reinforcement for their dimensional structure. Luma's tactical assessment came through with characteristic precision. Classic counter-intelligence strategy, allowing enemy to deploy resources, then adapting to incorporate those resources into existing architecture. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.